It's tight.
We're just talking about some pickleball banter, you know.
Oh my God.
We did pickleball in the inner city visit, what, 2 years ago? It was
Yeah,
fun.
in Lawrence, Kansas.
It's super
Yes.
fun.
Yeah.
I was just telling everyone I just got my own racket set, so I'm like, yeah, man.
It's fun.
You got it.
Y'all come
Pam,
see me on the
who is
pickleball
the-
court.
There was some guy that I worked the polls with who is like the pickleball ambassador, and he's offering me lessons. And
Well, it wasn't my husband.
it wasn't your husband. I would have known who he was.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, Amy.
Jim. So there's JB.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Ty, you have to get a hold of this guy because he'll set you up lessons, the whole thing.
They train everybody and anybody who shows up.
Oh, pass them along. I'm down.
Well, tell them.
Trying to work on my backswing, you know.
I just invite us to the wedding. That's all I ask.
Make sure it's early in the afternoon.
So my son had two new folks his age join the Duke Energy Renewables, and they came from Florida, and they asked him, they're like, hey, do you play pickleball? Where can we hook up some pickleball? Because that's what we play in Florida. And he's like, oh no.
That sounds like some young whippersnappers
Yeah,
playing
I know,
pickleball.
I know. So they're 30, so yeah.
Send him to Brad.
Not as young
He
as
thinks
me,
he's
but-
30 and his body is not. So, they went over to wipe off the courts early this afternoon after the rain. So heaven forbid they not get to play tonight. All right, Amy, you got to count down here for 3 minutes. 2 minutes. Oh, 2 minutes. All right. All right. Y'all saw that we, and I'll announce it, that Bridgepoint's being moved to November 18th.
I did.
Because of the CDC meeting last night. We're getting some people not happy that we're having a meeting on the 4th, the day after the election, but our choice was limited because of Veterans Day the following Wednesday. So
I will join them in being unhappy about
I know, but between that and
I think either way, it could be a very weird meeting.
yeah,
I think we had a meeting in 2016.
we do. We try not to do it, especially we don't do it after one of our elections because that's just too.
I know, but I'm talking about 2016, and we
Yeah.
all came in looking kind of like shell shocked. And
Yeah,
confused.
yeah.
And
And then we went to our racial equity training the next day, and we were all
that was appropriate.
We were in tears. All right. All right. Who we missing? Oh, there's Hong Bin and Alan coming in. Good. And did you hear my phone message I left you in the email I sent you?
I do not have a phone message, which I guess I need to figure out.
Yes.
But I did get the email.
The phone was the same as the email, so I just wasn't sure what the best way to reach you was. So
Is this about the?
item 18. Yeah.
Yes, I have a response from Corey Lyles, and I think he is prepared to address your questions about that. So
Thank you. Sorry it came in late breaking news.
no, yeah, the staff is aware of the issues and is ready to address them.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
About 30 seconds.
Still think Wasampa should be a Brazilian dance.
Oh, speaking of which, Alexa off. Sorry. We were counting stars. Oh, I better get my welcome statement. Okay, sorry. Yeah, the phone's blowing up again. There you go. We're ready?
Good.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 28th, 2020 meeting of the Chapel Hill Town Council. We have, think I say this every week, we have a very full agenda this evening. We're going to begin tonight after our announcements with the town's update on the COVID response. And after that, we have 6 other items for discussion, including a rezoning of the East Rosemary parking deck, a public hearing on the future land use map, a request for extension for the Charterwood project, updates to the town's mobility and connectivity plan, an amendment to the water and sewer service boundary area, otherwise known as Wasamba. There is a change to our agenda for this evening. At the applicant's request, item number 16 is being moved to November 18th. This item is conditional zoning for the proposed Bridgepoint project on Homestead Road. The applicant had met last night with our Community Design Commission, and they'll be working with our staff, including Brian Peterson, our urban designer, to make improvements to this plan. And at the end of the meeting, we will announce the appointments to 5 of our advisory boards. For those of you joining us on Zoom, we know this is still, we're all still getting used to this way of meeting. We want you to know that public input is very important to us, and we're doing our best to try to facilitate that. Tonight, you're welcome to speak on any of the items, and Mayor Pro Tem Parker will be calling 2 names at a time to come into the participant list to share your comments with us. And if you didn't sign up ahead of time, that's fine. You can do the raised hand option, and we will work to get you in. And if you're on the phone, instead of that, there's *9 to help us recognize to get you pulled in. So that's out there. And in keeping with our new rules for virtual meetings, we will need to do a roll call of all council members. I will ask you to unmute yourself as I call your name, and either please say here or present. And we will get that recorded. So we'll start off with Mayor Pro Tem Michael Parker.
Here.
Councilmember Jess Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Ellen Boyncy.
Here.
Councilmember Hong Bin Gu. Didn't hear you. You still can't hear you. Uh-oh, wait, she is here. So we're saying, can you hear us? Can't hear you. Okay. Councilmember Ty Wynn.
Here.
Councilmember Amy Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Stegman.
Here.
And the mayor, Pam Heminger, is also here. So that's recorded. Thank you very much. Wanted to let folks know we had someone submit a new petition for us to sign on to HR 763, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. We'd already done that back in June 24th. So thank you for bringing it back to our attention, but the council voted back on June to already take action on that. So that's good. The Justice and Action Committee be holding a special meeting next Thursday at 6 p.m. To continue their discussion about the charge and structure of the committee. Public attendance and input are encouraged. Again, please always check times and dates on the town calendar. Sometimes they move and sometimes we don't get it always right. But the town council will be meeting next Wednesday, November 4th at 7 p.m. We'll also be meeting Friday morning next week at 8 a.m. for our Council Committee on Economic Sustainability, CCES, and the public is welcome to attend. The meetings will be virtual, and the agendas and other information are going to be on the town calendar page. So that's there. And exciting news on early voting. As of Tuesday night, over 41,000 individuals in Orange County have voted early. That's really, that's just amazing. Early voting continues through Saturday, October 31st at 3 p.m. And if you or someone wishes to vote, but you are not registered, you can still register at the early voting sites up through Saturday at 3 p.m. Absentee ballots, if you've gotten one of those, you can also drop that off at an early voting site if you wish. And then the polls will be open on Election Day next Tuesday from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. I've been out to vote early voting sites, and our Board of Elections wants you to know that it's very safe. I've witnessed it firsthand. They have great protocols in place. We welcome you to come. We want people to early vote as much as possible because we're expecting long lines on Election Day. So get out there and do your early voting. So that's that on that. All right. Are there other announcements? Okay, well, there's always lots going on, so we'll check on that. So we will now ask for public comment on items not on the printed agenda this evening. If there's anyone who's wishing to speak on something that's not on the agenda, I know we have a couple of petitions. I'm not sure if they're all here or not, so we can bring them up. We can start off with the Stormwater Management Utility Advisory Board recommendation petition.
That's Pamela Schultz,
Mm-hmm.
who I believe is about to be brought on board. You with us, Pamela? Yes, Pamela, you unmute yourself, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
We
we
can hear
absolutely
you.
can. Cannot see you, but we can. There she is.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I know you have a big agenda, so I'll keep this very brief. The petition before you tonight from the Stormwater Advisory Board was the result of a subcommittee that met during the summer to develop recommendations for the council. The purpose of our committee was to assess how to best incorporate the review by our board into the development review process. As you know, our board is not part of the formal review process, and we are not seeking a change to our charter. However, the board has had a history of reviewing larger projects and projects with impacts to the town's resource conservation district. So our recommendations come after a thorough review of data on the size of projects over several years, and also an excellent review conducted by the stormwater staff to indicate the number of projects with RCD impacts. Should I read the text of the recommendations or the petition, or you have that with you?
We have that. That was
Yeah.
sent to us, so that's
Okay.
great. We have that.
So I'll just say you have the specific recommendations, and we're really just asking for projects that have a minimum of 5 acres or that exceed 5 acres and are have RCD. That those projects be alerted to our board. Based on our review of the data, this would mean that in most years only 2 or 3 projects actually meet these categories. And we would just be alerted to them at the same time that the CDC review takes place, so that we would be able to follow those projects and have the potential for giving input early, because we think that would allow for more substantive comments. I'm happy to answer any questions, and other than that, I'll finish. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to receive and refer.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Parker, second by Mr. Nguyen. Sorry, Ms. Gu, did you have something you wanted to share or ask, or? We still can't hear you. Do you want to log out and log back in and see if it fixes your audio?
Or worst case, you can phone in.
Yeah, sorry. Should have her go in. I think we can motion to receive and refer and then take her comment when she comes back, her question. Does that work for folks? So It's been motioned to receive and refer to manager and mayor for review. We'll see if she gets back in quickly. I can take a roll call vote while we're doing that. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncey. Councilmember Boyncey, did we get you? I didn't hear you either. Okay, there we go. Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well, and we'll see if Councilmember Gu comes back in. Don't see her yet. Mr. Parker, would you go ahead and look for the residents of Dixie Drive? Barry Nakel should be the person if he's here. He may not be here.
I did not sign up. Sorry, what was the name?
Barry Nakel, Nakell.
No such person is in our meeting.
Okay, well, you received his petition in writing. Barry contacted me over the summer, and I suggested, with the concern about the name of their street being Dixie Lane, they would like to change it. And I told him he would need to get all the signatures. He'd never done that before, but he was able to get everyone in the neighborhood on the street to sign the petition. So the process is they have to petition, it comes to the town, it goes through a process with our staff, and then it would come back to council for a public hearing. So if it's acceptable to council, we can receive and refer this so that it goes that direction.
We'll definitely vote to receive and refer.
Second.
Ooh, we got a bunch of seconds. So motion by Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Nguyen. Is that who I heard first? There you go. Yeah, okay. All right, roll call vote, please. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncey.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
Mayor says aye as well. We're still waiting on Councilmember Gu to come back in. Not seeing her at this time. Okay.
There she is. She's back now.
Okay. I'm not seeing her. There you are. Can you unmute yourself? Did you have a okay.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Great.
Oh, great.
Sorry. We went on to the next item, which was the street petition to refer it to Manager Mayor. Are you okay with that one? Yes. So Councilmember Gu also votes aye. Okay. So did you want to make a comment about the stormwater, or did you just want to?
No, I was just asking a question if the council member can still request a review by the stormwater. They have set the criteria for larger projects, but it has been done in the past that the council members, if they have concerns about the stormwater issues, I'm hoping that this is a part of their petition as well, but it will be included in the review process.
Yes, I think our intention is that absolutely, that process could still occur, but we're hoping that this petition would allow for the majority of projects that we end up looking at coming to us early. Anyway,
earlier in the process, because when we request it, it's usually either after concept plan or after first public hearing. So we still have that opportunity as a council. We can always request that. So, okay, great. All right. Thank you. The third petition I has was Ms. Hagan's request for us to sign on to HR 763, which we've already done. I don't know that she signed up to speak. And was there anyone else wishing to speak on items not on the printed agenda? Michael, you're muted.
There are no raised hands.
Okay, great. I'm just checking the chat real quick, make sure someone didn't go in there. Okay, we are good. So that moves us on to, again, any announcements from council members? Sorry, that's on my agenda again. Moves us to the consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda.
Second.
Ooh, been moved by Mr. Parker, also second by Mr. Boyncy in there. Again, roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncy.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well. Thank you very much. And I saw there were good questions in there on the consent agenda. I'm trying to think if there was anything. We had a bunch of budget ordinances where we actually had money coming in. That was really good. So, all right. You have information items in your packet. Brings us to our first discussion item, which is an update on the town efforts to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. And take it away, whoever's presenting this evening. Ms. Drayton.
Yes. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, I'm Kelly Drayton, the Emergency Management Coordinator for the town of Chapel Hill, and I'm here before you tonight to provide an update on the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as a few related public service announcements. I'd like to start with some of our state updates. Earlier today, Governor Cooper issued Executive Order 171 that clarifies and extends protections under the CDC's order that prohibits residential landlords nationwide from evicting certain tenants. This new executive order is in effect through December 31st, 2020, unless otherwise amended. Also, last week, Governor Cooper announced that North Carolina will remain in phase 3 for an additional 3 weeks until Friday, November 13th. As Secretary Cohen stated, our COVID-19 trends are moving in the wrong direction, and everyone has a part to play in slowing this spread. While it's tempting to let fatigue and frustration settle in, now is really the time to double down and take control of the virus by practicing our 3 Ws and engaging in safe behaviors. So one thing we can all do to help in the effort to trace and ultimately slow the spread of COVID-19 is download the Slow COVID NC Exposure Notification app. Just download the application, enable your Bluetooth and exposure notification settings, and you'll be notified if you've been in close contact with someone who has shared a positive COVID-19 test result within the application. Once you opt in to the notification system, you can also anonymously share a COVID-19 test result within the app. Slow COVID NC protects your identity and privacy while empowering you to protect yourself, your family, and your community. Speaking of protecting yourself and your community, just a reminder to get your flu shot. Our public health professionals say that October is the best month to get your flu shot because it will help defend you throughout the flu season, the peak of which for us locally is February. And don't forget to post a picture on social media of you being an influencer. Orange County Health Department continues to offer COVID-19 tests every Wednesday in Chapel Hill. In addition, starting this week, our local health department is offering free COVID-19 testing every weekday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Whitted Human Services Building located at 300 Tryon Street in Hillsborough. Just a reminder, the Department of Health and Human Services maintains a full database of testing locations, including information about this new weekday testing, and that can be found at orangecountync.gov/testing. Another community initiative I'd like to highlight are our neighborhood support circles, which is a community partnership between the town and the Refugee Community Partnership to offer academic and childcare support. We're now offering 9 neighborhood support circles in the community, serving families from Spanish, Burmese, Karen, Kinyarwanda, and English-speaking communities. The feedback we've received from these communities are overwhelmingly positive from both the children and the parents, and we anticipate having another neighborhood support circle up within the next week. As we look towards the end of the week, we're thankful that yet another hurricane, Hurricane Zeta, does not appear to be a threat for our community, although we will continue to monitor conditions in the case anything changes. And as everyone knows, this Saturday is Halloween. Our efforts to encourage the community to celebrate Halloween differently this year began weeks ago, and we're tremendously thankful to our community partners, including Orange County Health Department and UNC Chapel Hill, in expressing how important it is to limit crowd gatherings this year, to stay within your family unit, and to strictly adhere to the 3 Ws. We look forward to seeing all the creative virtual ways people are celebrating Halloween this year. And if you need some ideas about how to celebrate safely, you can visit orangecountync.gov/Halloween. And finally, I want to close with a reminder about our 3 Ws and to reiterate the importance of this public health guidance that medical experts continue to say are the best way to defend against the coronavirus. Every time you practice the 3 Ws, you're helping slow the spread and maybe even save a life. Wear a face covering over your nose and mouth, wash your hands and your reusable face covering frequently, and wait 6 feet apart from people who are not within your household. Thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Kelly. I don't know if you have the answer to this now, and if not, that's fine. I would just be interested at some point. If you have any insight into the effectiveness of the app that you mentioned, I signed up for it, but I was just wondering how popular it is, how many people have been willing to sign up for it. I know you have to stay on Bluetooth, which I don't always do in order for it to kind of keep track of you, but I'm just wondering if we have any kind of early indications of whether it's panning out to be something helpful or not.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do know we've had over 100,000 people download the app, so we are seeing good participation, and I can follow up with additional information about its effectiveness.
Yeah, I'd just be interested. I mean, like our next COVID update, I would just, because it seems like something where people who are careful are interested, and I don't know if anybody can get the virus anywhere, but I could just imagine that folks who are skeptical about it might be skeptical about masking or other things too. So I was just wondering, but anyway, thank you.
Mr. Boynton?
Yep, I had a question, and this may be more rumor than anything else, but I had heard of at least 1 or 2 neighborhoods that, in thinking about Halloween and thinking about ways that folks could, get their kids out and have the trick-or-treating experience. I know that there are neighborhoods that are, trying to think of creative ways to do it. I guess among them, one way I've heard, and I don't know if any particular neighborhood has committed to doing this, but is to essentially try to put some kind of limit on trick-or-treaters by where they live in terms of folks having to live in the neighborhood in order to do that. Has town staff heard anything about this like turning into some kind of commitment by neighborhoods? Just want to get a sense of if that's something that's actually for real and happening.
So I don't have a sense of how many neighborhoods within Chapel Hill have committed to doing that, but I know it was one of the strategies talked about was phasing trick-or-treating, maybe doing different time slots for age groups. And it was encouraged that HOAs would set those parameters for themselves. But we can certainly dig in and see if we can find some additional information on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll just say that, I would caution any community against limiting folks in that way. It can be very exclusionary. So
yeah.
If there isn't anyone thinking about doing that, I would caution you against not doing that.
I wanted to update council on a couple of things. One is that some of you asked me to get UNC here to talk about what their spring semester plans are going to be. We have lined up someone to come speak. We just couldn't get it coordinated for this evening. I'm hoping they're coming on November 4th, but it could be a subsequent meeting to talk about their plans and to share with us their thinking. I do know I've been in a lot of contact with the chancellor lately. I do know that they're still evolving some pieces of the plan, but they have purchased equipment to help ramp up their testing capabilities on campus. So there'll be information to be shared with us as a community as well. So look for that to come. And then Monday evening, the Metro mayors met with Dr. Cohen. We talked a lot about the rise in numbers. Just to share with you, it's been mostly in the rural communities where the numbers have spiked up due to faith-based organizations and family gatherings. Charlotte, unfortunately, has had a lot of faith-based outbreaks. And so they're trying to figure out how to work with folks to realize that that's still not going to be okay, especially as we head into the winter months and they can't have those kinds of activities outside anymore. We don't want them going inside and having large gatherings or singing and those kinds of things that we know spread the virus as well. So she shared that information. She also shared that if the numbers continue to increase, that there would be, the governor would be looking at scaling back those numbers again from indoor and outdoor gatherings as we move forward. That's a consideration. Also, the curfew that we have on alcohol sales could be another. We were trying to share back and forth best strategies. We heard some good strategies from other cities and towns. And then the health department has the ability to work with the alcohol enforcement department to a process of warning and then taking away alcohol license if a restaurant's not compliant. They're having some trouble with some restaurants as well. But it's a process. It's not something they can just walk in and do. And again, we've talked about strategies. The mayors agreed that we prefer the educate versus the carrot approach versus the stick approach and trying to get people to wear masks. We talked about requiring masks as a statewide mandate that has not, in all public places. So there's options that are being looked at, and everyone agreed that trying to do all this right during election time was probably not the best time to come out with some new protocols. So hopefully we'll see something different after this weekend. And then they want us to start putting out warnings about Thanksgiving and people getting together at Thanksgiving. So look for those announcements to be coming. So anyway, those are the things going on right now as we learn more. Ms. Gu?
Is there any communication between our town and the school district about the reopening of schools? Is there any communication with us?
That has mostly been with the county, but I want to check in. Kelly's shaking her head. I know the staffs are talking to each other, but I'll let her share.
Yes, they do have a task force established to look at their reopening plans, and staff is represented on that.
Is it possible to give us an update if they have a more solid, concrete plan? Can we invite them come over to give a talk to us, just like UNC did?
Yeah, we could do that. Could we get someone from staff to come? I don't know that they've solidified their plan yet, but when they do, yeah. Okay, great idea. Okay, well, thank you very much. We know the team is still working hard on all aspects of COVID. The food distribution still is going gangbusters, both with food for students and the weekly food distribution and some other components as well. Doing an amazing job here. I'm just very, very proud of how well this community is trying to help each other, and that's great. All right, moving on to item number 12. Consider an application for conditional zoning at 125 East Rosemary Street parking garage from Town Center 2, otherwise known as TC2, to Town Center 2 Conditional Zoning District, known as TC-2-CZD. And I do want to share with folks, I know this has been very interesting for folks and a complicated process, but tonight we're just voting on the rezoning for the town-owned parking deck. And we had public comment at our last meeting in keeping with North Carolina state law and left the comment period open for 24 hours. But because this is a complex project and to make sure that the public is kept in the loop as we move along, I've asked our town manager and our economic development director to provide a short update on the work they've been doing around the economic development agreement and the due diligence process. And then we'll move on to the zoning discussion and vote, which is a separate matter, but we wanted to be able to share with everyone where we were, and we want to continue to give good updates on this project. So, Mr. Jones.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Reese Jones, Chapel Hill Town Manager. And before we move into the rezoning, I'm going to provide you with a quick update on where we are with the East Rosemary Street garage. Now that the economic development agreement has been signed and we are officially have officially entered into the due diligence phase. So if there are no pending issues identified during the due diligence phase, the town and Grubb properties are set to exchange properties by the end of May 2021. Grubb and the town will work to entitle the new deck and finalize the design. The council will discuss the most recent traffic impact analysis and latest design elements at your November 6th CCES meeting. The town will contract for and pay for the new deck. Once we have final design and all the issues are agreed upon, we will finalize that design and submit it for preliminary staff review. There are 2 rounds of staff reviews, and the first has already begun on the project. Grubb is set to submit for a concept plan hearing for the new office building by the end of November. There will be other provisions related to the new office building that will be negotiated as part of the office entitlement process, and they are already included, and there are a number of provisions that are already included in the EDA as well. Our town has a repurchase option, as we've discussed with you before. If for some reason Grubb fails to secure entitlement of the office building by November of 2021, the town will have the right to repurchase the property that is in the EDA, as council asked for us to include back in September. The due diligence period that I just mentioned runs through November 23rd. There's a very large team of folks working on these issues and preparing for the construction of the garage. You see the list here. There are a number of town staff members who will be part of this process. We'll also have representatives from the design firm, Perkins & Will, Ballantyne Associates, Walker Consulting, and Grubb Construction, all working together to construct the garage. There are a few additional items that we are working on during this due diligence period. Finalizing the letter of inquiry with the University of North Carolina concerning the 100 parking spaces they plan to pay for in the garage. Finalizing the Wallace deck lease with Grubb, completing the temporary license agreement to allow for site laydown for the projects, and the improvements agreement, which will detail the management of the construction project. The next steps involving public engagement are as follows. As I mentioned, the CCES meeting is set for November 6th to discuss traffic and design. The concept plan for Grubb's new office building will come to the council in the very near future. We haven't set a date for that just yet. The town will be holding a public information session in February of 2021 regarding the overall project and construction impacts on downtown. Participants will also have an opportunity to sign up for a monthly newsletter and notification service beginning in April. And we are also exploring the possibility of a live feed video placed on the Wallace deck to watch as progress is made on the construction. You see the link there. Is that on the page? I'm sorry, I can't see it.
I don't think so.
I think that was on the last page. I apologize. But you can find more information about the project on townofchapelhill.org/businesses/East Rosemary Street redevelopment project. And so the next steps now, traffic and design will be discussed, as we mentioned, at the CCES meeting on November 6th. The overall project and budget update will be provided to the council at the December CCES meeting. Our construction team begins monthly meetings this upcoming month in November. The council will consider final construction bid and general update in February of next year. There will be a public meeting to discuss construction and allow for opportunities for folks to sign up for those updates in February as well. We will return to the Local Government Commission for project review on the financing in February or March of 21. The council will consider the bond authorization in April of next year. The land exchanges and closing will occur in April as well, and construction begins in May of next year. So with that, I will turn the presentation over to Judy Johnson, who will present on the rezoning issue.
Thank you. Judy, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm Judy Johnson with our planning department, and here with you tonight on the conditional zoning application for 125-135 East Rosemary. So this conditional zoning project has been submitted by Grubb Properties, but with the town as a partner in that. The public hearing for this item was held back in September on the 30th. We held that additional public comment period for an additional 24 hours under the remote meeting legislation. And I have I think it's about 10 slides and should take just about 5 minutes. So our recommendation for you this evening is adoption of resolution, the resolution of consistency, and then enactment of ordinance A. And I know you're very familiar with this slide, but just to walk you through, we have done a staff evaluation. It has gone in front of many of our development review advisory boards. We've held the public hearing. The public hearing was closed back last month, and before you tonight, anticipating possible action. And just to give a brief familiarity of overview of the site, it's part of a larger redevelopment project there along East Rosemary Street. The CVS building across the street, as well as the Wallace deck down at the end of Rosemary, which would be replaced with a office building in the future, which the manager referenced. The piece of property before you, or the project before you tonight, is for the two parcels on the north side of East Rosemary, where there is an existing parking deck. It's just under about an acre, 1.7 acres. The proposal before you tonight is to build a new 6 or 7 story building with about 1,100 parking spaces. Along with that is rezoning this property to a town center 2 conditional zoning district to accommodate these improvements. This new deck would replace all of the existing spaces as well as the Wallace deck, and then would add it's about 200 to 300 new spaces on top of that. Here's a street view of the existing deck. There are 236 spaces, and it's about 40 years old. And just a quick little walkthrough on the site plan. The area, the sites, the 2 parcels are outlined in red. As you can see, the parking deck does take up most of the site. There is a sewer easement, an Owasso sewer easement along the east side of this. And one point of clarification we want to make sure is on the packet that went out to you on Friday, there were 2 errors. Appreciate one of our council members pointing those out. It was on page 102 and 110. There was an incorrect reference to the North Street access. It was indicating that would be a one-way. The proposal before you tonight is for a full access at that, both in and out of North Street. So just want to make sure you were clear on that. Couple other attributes on this. There's some office storage space that's proposed, as well as some additional floor area that could potentially accommodate a police substation. And I know your packet contains the floor plans for the other decks, so you're able to see all of the additional levels of this parking deck. There's also a proposal for the front porch, which is the area along East Franklin Street. And this area, it's a bit of a rendering to look at. You can see some of the facade elements there, and the opportunity of that front porch is to help activate the street with possibility of having some food trucks or different venue to use that area. And town staff has been working, including our urban designer, with the fire department and other reviewers about this crosswalk across East Rosemary, looking to improve the traffic calming in here and create a safer and more pedestrian friendly crossing, similar to what you see in this, could be shown in this rendering with some pedestrian refuge islands there. Couple of requested modifications to regulations we want to bring your attention to is that they are, the applicant is asking for increase of building height on all four sides. This would be increasing it from the 44 feet to 73 feet. And an additional modification to regulation is regarding that interior solar setback, which is on the north property line. You can see it is a regular line there that runs across that red line. And this area does border North Street, or the North Street properties, and these properties are zoned residential. In our town center zoning districts, we don't have buffers between properties except when they border residential properties. So because this irregular line cutting not being quite straight, it does limit the ability to have that full 11-foot width buffer there and still maintain and keep all the required parking spaces. So there's additional screening would be placed along that back edge to help reduce the visual impacts of this parking deck. Another change or another addition to your the ordinance, and I believe a revised ordinance A has been shared with you, is adding stipulation number 12. And this was to clarify the improvements, or to require the improvements to the intersection of North Street, Columbia Street, and Martin Luther King, to include a traffic signal and some improvements to North Street along that. And that would be done obviously in conjunction with NCDOT's approvals. And that concludes my presentation, and recommendation again is adoption of the resolution of consistency and enactment of Ordinance A. The applicant representatives Joe Dye and George Reshley are also here and are here to answer questions. And
Thank you, Judy. And we also want to offer a congratulations for your new grandbaby that was born over the weekend. And we wish them all well. So
thank you. I will pass the word on.
Nice. Aw, that's great. Okay. Council, are there clarifying questions before we move to hearing from the public? And again, this is just on the rezoning. I know you got some updates, but we'll have time for more questions about the updates at our CCES meeting.
I know you want to hold questions on there. I just want to comment to staff that I've had inquiries from people in the Rosemary neighborhood about being included in plans for construction traffic and things like that. And it looks like you've got a February 2021 construction meeting. Would that be the time that they would be able to come and learn what the plans are and make comments?
Yes,
it would be, and we could reach out even earlier to make sure they're aware of the date, and maybe even have some discussions with them prior to that. But that would be the first significant public information meeting on the construction itself.
Okay, that would be great. And the residents up at Cobb Terrace have also expressed interest in being involved in looking at traffic calming measures. So I spoke to Dwight about that this morning. He's got the names of the interested parties, but just anybody else who's listening to this, the town will be running, we'll be having open houses where the public can come and weigh in on options for that. So just wanted to get that in the public record. Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions? Ms. Gu?
Well, because this North Street, it was indicated as a one-way traffic, and now you're saying that it's full, which means full service, which means like two-way. So does that also includes like at the exit, at the intersection of North Street and the MLK? Is that right in, right out, or is that a full access as well?
It would be full access, and I believe Kumar Nepali, our traffic engineer, is on the call as well. There is an added step number 12 that we added in there for improvements to that intersection. And that would include signalizing and some channelization and improvements to North Street. I mean, that whole intersection there, I mean, they're somewhat misaligned, North Columbia and Martin Luther and North Street. So working towards improving that.
So does that mean the whole North Street is going to be expanded, widened?
Only in that, I believe it's only in that first, I was going to say 100 or 200 feet, not the length of North Street.
Okay, and that is going to be added to our town's budget for this construction cost?
If you remember, I petitioned to add that into our costs when we were reviewing the project. We were given estimated cost, and we put that into the the project.
Okay, so is there a drawing for North Street? I mean, when it's available to us, will we have a chance to review that and also give the community, the North Street community, a chance to review the drawing?
Certainly. We have just started thinking about this. It has not done any traffic engineering work on anything yet, but that will come over the next months.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions? Okay, Mr. Parker, is anyone? Oh, Mr. Boyncy.
Sorry, I was a little late there. I was just wondering, in terms of kind of time, the timeline for North Street. You probably don't have a sense of this at this point, but I'll just say that I'll be curious as we go along to find out about what the timeline for those changes to North Street would be, including the contemplated traffic signalization at the corner of MLK and North Street.
We'll be happy to gather that and share that.
All right, Mr. Parker, is anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
Not so far as I can tell. Nobody signed up, and I am not seeing any raised hands, so I do not believe so, no.
Great, so I bring it back to council for comments and then consideration of how we move forward. Okay, well, if there aren't any comments, do we have a motion?
I move consistency with, I move the resolution of consistency.
Second.
It's been motioned by Mr. Parker, seconded by Mr. Nguyen. Any other comments that haven't been shared? All right, roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncy.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
The mayor says aye as well. I can't everybody moved around the screen again. So I'm trying to get it alphabetically. All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. And we'll look for those continued updates.
And I move ordinance A.
No pieces of that. Sorry, folks. All right, it's been moved by Mr. Parker.
Second.
Who seconded it? Ms. Stegman. Sorry, had to catch that. Second by Ms. Stegman. Okay. Any other comments?
I think this is the right place to make this. There's a reference to bike lanes in the stipulations, calling for them on page 110, section 5.8. And I know that topic is still being worked out with our downtown partners, and it's still very much a matter of discussion. So I was wondering if it's appropriate to strike that from the rezoning.
Could it be modified to say consideration of bike lanes? That might be better.
whatever. I think just that committing to it when we're still having ongoing community discussions isn't appropriate at this time.
Is that a friendly amendment, Mr. Parker, Ms. Stegman?
Yep, fine by me. I'm very friendly.
Ms. Stegman?
Okay.
Yeah, so to amend it to do something so that it's not a commitment to the bike lanes, but a consideration of bike lanes, maybe? That work?
Fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. Roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncey.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
And Mayor says aye as well. Motion is unanimous. Thank you very much. We look forward to hearing from updates on the project as we move along. And just to remind the public, we will be looking at some particulars of this project at the CCES meeting, which is also recorded if you can't attend at 8 o'clock on Friday, November 6th. Can't believe we're going to be hitting November next week. Wow. And we'll get continued updates on this project as we move through the due diligence period and forward on there. I was remiss, we had a celebrating successes video to share with you at the beginning of the meeting, and we're gonna tee that up right now so that you can see one of our success stories on one of our affordable housing projects. It's the award ceremony. They did a great presentation. Wanted to share that with all of you and with the public. So, Mr. Clark, Ms. Harvey.
2020 Housing North Carolina Award for Rental Development is the Greenfield Community in Chapel Hill. In a town like Chapel Hill, where land and housing costs are at a premium, it can be difficult for working families and seniors on fixed income to find affordable living options. Enter Greenfield, a two-phase $24 million affordable housing community that provides easy access to schools, employment, medical facilities, and transportation options in the town's highly desirable Blue Hill District. Developed by DHIC, Greenfield Place and Greenfield Commons address the gap in affordable housing with 149 apartment homes for families and seniors. Greenfield Place features 1, 2, and 3-bedroom family apartments ranging from 691 to 1,196 square feet, with rents from $290 to $890. The adjacent Greenfield Commons has 1 and 2-bedroom senior apartments with rents ranging from $310 to $785. The apartment homes feature open floor plans, including walk-in closets and washer-dryer connections. The Greenfield community serves households with incomes at or below 60% of the area median income, and renters are able to save more than 40% compared to local market rate apartments. Both developments are built to Energy Star standards, including Energy Star appliances, high-efficiency heat pumps, and low-flow plumbing fixtures to keep energy costs low. Native and drought-resistant landscaping also adds to the sustainability of the community and reduces the need for irrigation. The buildings face a pedestrian-oriented, tree-lined main street and are connected with a sidewalk system and greenway that enhance the walkability of the community and encourage health and wellness activities. Greenfield community features a playground, gazebo, grill, and a clubhouse that includes a kitchen, business center, and a TV gathering area. Located on a bus line, the community is close to shopping, schools, and health services. Greenfield is an outstanding example of partnership between a nonprofit developer and a local municipality. In addition to providing loans for both developments, the town of Chapel Hill donated 9 acres of land and assisted with extension of the sewer line to the site. DHIC works closely with the Orange County Affordable Housing Coalition for referrals and service support. The community has been life-changing for residents, including some who were previously homeless or living in shelters. When Tim moved into his apartment at Greenfield Place, it was the first time he'd had a roof over his head in more than a year, which he credits as saving his life and giving him peace. Many residents are now able to live where they work in diverse industries, such as childcare, healthcare, service and hospitality, retail, and maintenance. The senior development has allowed lifelong Chapel Hill residents to remain in their hometown after retirement on a Social Security income and provides access to free transportation that enables them to continue care with their local doctors and stay involved in the community. New resident Sharon said the difference between her old apartment and where she is now has been incredible for her 2 school-aged children. BJ says the development is convenient to his classes at NC Central University in Durham while allowing his mother to remain close to her doctor. Greenfield Place and Greenfield Commons were financed with federal low-income housing tax credits awarded by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. The North Carolina Housing Finance Agency has awarded 2020 Housing North Carolina Award plaques to DHIC Inc. and the town of Chapel Hill for these apartment homes.
On behalf of the board, staff of DHIC, and especially the residents of the Greenfield communities, we extend our gratitude to the Housing Finance Agency, its board, Scott Farmer, and the rest of the staff for this award. The catalyst for the development of Greenfield Place and Greenfield Commons began with a vision shaped by the citizens, local officials, and staff of the town of Chapel Hill for how to create more housing options for families and individuals with limited incomes. With this as a goal, the town of Chapel Hill looked at town-owned properties as possible sites and ultimately identified a parcel adjacent to the town cemetery in the Blue Hill District. The town of Chapel Hill donated and subdivided the land, extended the sanitary sewer, provided soft funding, and helped shepherd and expedite the projects through plan approval, construction, and placing them in service. Town staff stood behind their pledge to help both phases completed within necessary timeframes to meet tax credit requirements. The Greenfield community is a result, with 149 homes and integrated sites for families and seniors earning less than 60% of the area median income. Residents are employed in occupations such as childcare, healthcare, retail, hospitality, and maintenance. In addition to awarding the housing credit, the finance agency loaned a total of $2.2 million in RPP funds to help finance the communities. Other funding partners that we'd like to recognize include the town of Chapel Hill, Orange County, the North Carolina State Employees Credit Union Foundation, NeighborWorks America, BB&T, now Truist, Centric Community Capital, and Enterprise Community Investment. We are grateful to our hardworking development team that included Klein Design Associates, Harold K. Jordan and Company, Kimley Horn, and Community Management Corporation. We'd also like to acknowledge the tremendous support that the Orange County Affordable Housing Coalition has provided through referrals and services support. The Greenfield community is a great model for how municipality and developers can collectively leverage partnerships and resources within the community to execute and sustain its affordable goals. Thank you for recognizing Greenfield Place and Greenfield Commons for this award.
Still cleaning that confetti up from my desk. It's a wonderful project. It's a wonderful community. It's a great partnership. You can see what partnerships can do, and we're very proud of our part in winning this award. It's a statewide award for housing, and just wanted to share that with you because I thought they did a great job telling the story. So telling the story there. So thank you for showing that. Okay, we're moving to item number 13, charting our future, a public hearing on the adoption of the future land use map. This is an update. We won't be officially voting on this item this evening. We will be voting on, I believe, the November 18th meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rogers.
Is everyone seeing my screen okay?
We are.
Wonderful. Good evening. I am Elisa Duffy Rogers, the LUMO project manager. Tonight is the public hearing for adoption of the future land use map, update to Chapel Hill 2020. Seem to be having trouble advancing my slides. Staff's recommendation is to open the public hearing, receive public comment, close the public hearing, and allow written public comment for 24 hours following the closing of the public hearing at the email address shown on the screen, as well as provide any additional input on the future land use map. We have been very fortunate throughout this project to have a wonderful consultant team from Kimley Horn helping us with the future land use map update to Chapel Hill 2020. Tonight we have with us Sal Musara and Jonathan Whitehurst, and I will turn the presentation over to Mr. Musara at this time. Following their remarks, I will wrap up the presentation, and Mr. Musara and Mr. Whitehurst will be available at the conclusion of the presentation to answer any questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment so that you can see our consultants. And so I'll turn it over to Sal.
Thank you, Elisa. And good evening, everyone. Mayor, council members, manager, and staff. On behalf of Jonathan Whitehurst, who's joining us this evening, and our entire project team. We're really excited to be here. Pleased to be here to support the really this important effort and to assist with any questions that there may be during the discussion tonight. Just a few brief comments as we get started here. In working with communities on similar efforts over time, the biggest challenge always seems to be how difficult it is to take a long-term view of planning, to go beyond what we see outside our windows today and tend to react to. And when you're talking 20, 30-year time horizon, this is a big challenge. 30 years ago, our views of land use were certainly certainly different than they are today. And then maybe that applies to even a year ago, given current events. So looking at 30 years can be very daunting on a project like this. And even though we can't crystal ball our preferences 30 years from now, we can try to build an appropriate amount of flexibility in our planning documents, such as charting our future, and respond to the trends that we see while providing room to course correct over time in response to changing conditions. We think the document you have in front of you, crafted thus far, provides strong guidance, balanced with the flexibility to do exactly that. So it becomes a framework for future decision making. This council and this community understand the importance of this document and its role as you enter your next effort to rewrite the LUMO, which is really your guiding document for guiding development when you get down to the details. I would encourage you, as we do with all our clients, and the challenge is to trust in the process that has created and resulted in charting our future. And that means as you move forward to work on the LUMO, that you continue to trust the decisions that have been made as part of this document, and in a sense to validate this document by making your future decisions really reference the work that has been done to date on this important document. So it's really important to kind of trust how we got there. And then finally, the evolution, I think, of this document over the months really demonstrates that the process works. There has been an extensive amount of conversation, dialogue, very broad input. And in fact, the details of the plan have changed and been modified based on the input from you, from other stakeholders, from the community. So I think the process really does work in this case to produce a living document that provides you a good working framework in the future. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Elisa. And again, we will be here to answer any questions if needed.
So a little over 2 years ago, we kicked off the Charting Our Future project at the Franklin Hotel and started this journey to chart Chapel Hill's future to the year 2050. Since then, we have held several rounds of engagement, including a multi-day charrette and office hours at University Place in the summer of 2018, as well as an online survey and attendance at various community events like the Latin American Festival and the Northside Picnic in order to raise awareness of the project. Last summer, we had a traveling open studio days where community members could drop in, view the flume, and provide input. We also held focus groups and a public meeting, as well as continued public attendance at various events. This summer, due to COVID-19, our engagement efforts did move online. We held a digital community meeting, a virtual public meeting, and facilitated online board and commission input. All this has resulted in approximately 84 in-person opportunities for community members to learn about the project or provide input. We've had 2 online input opportunities where over 1,600 unique users have commented on portions of the future land use map. So at this point, I'd like to step back for a moment and briefly review the elements of the future land use map. These include a document explaining the future land use map and its components, including the guiding statements, which form the policy guidance for both the future land use map and the overhaul of the land use management ordinance. The map book, which includes the resiliency assessment maps, the town-wide future land use map for those areas outside of the focus area maps, and the focus area maps and principles. This document embodies so much of what we heard from community members over the last several years. For example, the focus area maps include a transitional area where we are stressing how important it is to respect adjacent land uses and to make thoughtful transitions. In fact, one guiding statement is devoted to making those thoughtful transitions. The guiding statements embody the values that we heard from our community members. The flume also represents an opportunity to connect with other town priorities. The guiding statements specifically speak to demonstrating the town's commitment to responding to the threats of climate change, as well as the need for environmental stewardship and resiliency. They also ensure economic development that includes promoting environmental justice, mitigating displacement, and developing healthy and safe communities. They also direct investment along key transportation corridors and promote the construction of transit and multimodal transportation options. In addition, the focus area maps and principles demonstrate a commitment to the creation of walkable multimodal communities that integrate gathering spaces, green infrastructure, green building concepts, and sustainable site development. In short, the flume aligns with the council's strategic goals and lays the foundation for meaningful change so that the LUMO and our other land use tools are predictable, functional, and intentional. There are several noteworthy practical considerations for the future land use map. The first is that future land use map 2050 and the focus area maps will replace the land use plan in Chapel Hill 2020. All other aspects of Chapel Hill 2020 will remain unchanged. An unusual component of the future land use map are the resiliency maps for flooding and extreme heat. These maps are based on underlying data such as tree canopy coverage and impervious surfaces that really will change over time. Consequently, these changes in the underlying data causes the maps to change, and changing maps are an unusual element for a comprehensive plan, since comprehensive plans typically only contain static maps. The resiliency maps will be a valuable resource to us during development review and in the rewrite of the land use management ordinance. I would like to highlight a few items from the Council Committee on Economic Sustainability meeting in October. The focus area matrix in the North 15501 corridor was revised for sub-area C, which is here. The multifamily character type was designated as primary. In this version of the plan, it is now secondary. In addition to that, we had some conversations at that meeting about downtown heights. And in order to express to the community that the vision for downtown would be more developed at a later date, text was added to the flume to express that refinement would take place in the next phase of the Charting Our Future project. I would also like to remind you that back in January of 2020, we had a conversation about the project charter. At that time, Council concurred that in the next phase of the LUMA rewrite, that there would be an intensive study of 4 focus areas in order to better define the vision for those focus areas. The graphic that's on your screen illustrates how this interim step will fit into the Charting Our Future project. And while Council didn't decide which focused areas would be included as a part of these intensive studies, it is anticipated based on our conversations that we had at the CCES meeting that downtown would be a part of those intensive studies. Including it would give us the opportunity to discuss in more detail and in more depth the character, massing, streetscapes, and the public realm. In short, this would give us an opportunity to define a sense of place for these focus areas. We have received comments from stakeholders in the last several days. UNC Chapel Hill has asked for 3 changes. The first is that all UNC parcels are labeled as such. And on the future land use map 2050, which is that map that is a town-wide map for all of the areas of town outside of the focus areas, UNC parcels are labeled with the university land use category. On the focus area maps, UNC's parcels are not labeled because no specific parcels are shown on the focus area maps. The UNC also asked us to make changes to the university land use category, which can be accommodated if council concurs. They also requested that a university character type and inclusion in the character and type matrix be for this university character type. Staff would say that the existing character types are very broad and defined in a very loose way, and that would accommodate any of the university's existing and proposed uses. We did also hear from University Health, from UNC Health. They requested changes to several land use categories, which can be accommodated if council concurs. They also asked for changes to the commercial office character type to include research facilities, which can also be accommodated if council concurs. They also asked that the reference to less intense maker services be removed from this character type. Staff would really prefer that that language be retained. As we work to design our stakeholder input process for the next phase of charting our future, we will ensure that UNC and UNC Health play an integral role. So the path for flume adoption includes the public hearing this evening with consideration for adoption plan for November 18th. We are also planning an interactive PDF for the flume so that the executive summary and the table of contents can contain links for easier navigation. The town's GIS staff is also preparing a map app that translates the flume into a more intuitive digital format. So finally, staff's recommendation is to open the public hearing, receive public comment, close the public hearing, and allow for public comment for 24 additional hours, as well as provide any additional input. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there clarifying questions from council before we hear from the public? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Elisa. Could you give us some guidance on some of the requests from UNC and UNC Healthcare beyond the last one that you had preferred to stay as is? I don't know if you're going to go over this later or if you have any guidance to council on what those changes would mean or what you recommend.
In terms of the ones from UNC, their changes in terms of the requests to change the university land use category, certainly staff has no issue with that if you concur. In terms of labeling university or university entity properties as such on the focus area maps, we don't think that that would be appropriate because there are no specific parcels identified on those focus area maps. In our previous iteration, there were, if you remember, we had each individual parcel shown with a land use. When we moved to this less prescriptive approach, those parcel lines were taken off. So therefore, since we don't show any other parcels, we really don't think it's appropriate to identify the parcels that are owned by UNC on those focus area maps. In terms of creating a university character type, the university's uses can be accommodated within our existing character types. And then in terms of adding a university character type to the matrix, if council chooses to create a university character type, certainly we can do that. But as I said, I do think that their existing or proposed uses could be accommodated within our existing character types for those focus areas. In terms of the requests that UNC Health made, we have no issue with any of them, assuming that council concurs, but they had asked that we strike the language for less intensive maker services. We would like to keep that, but their request to strike the language for less intensive lab services and replace it with research facilities, we have no concerns with that.
Okay, thank you.
I know they're both here to speak this evening, so you'll hear from them as well. Okay, Ms. Ryan?
Would there be an opportunity for staff or our attorney to look a little more into those issues before our final session where we're voting on it? I have concerns, for example, about what the implications would be. One of the requests that UNC Healthcare had was that we make hospitals a commercial use, which would then greatly expand the places in town where we were telling the public that that was acceptable. And the hospitals have, they have very intensive uses, they have very special needs. So I have questions about allowing that kind of really broad change without a little more reflection on it. And I know that we got these requests pretty recently and there hasn't been a lot of time for staff to look at them. So, would that be appropriate for us to have staff come back after taking a little bit, having more time with it and taking a little harder look at some of those things?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
The only comment I would have is to remember that what is on the table tonight is closure of the public hearing so that it can be, so that the 24-hour comment period can be accommodated in the virtual environment. So if considerable discussion is going to occur at a subsequent meeting, you might want to reconsider the schedule of closure of the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I have this question regarding, you said that for the university character type, and you mentioned that you think that the current existing matrix is flexible enough, so we do not need to create a new university character type. Does that mean that the current matrix is flexible, not only that it is able to accommodate the use from UNC and the UNC healthcare, it's also is flexible enough to other development as well?
Yes, ma'am. I think if I understand your question appropriately, yes, that is certainly something. It is flexible enough to do that. And then if I may, based on what Ms. Anderson said, say something else to Ms. Ryan about her question. Is that okay, Mayor?
Yes, oh, please.
So keep in mind two things. The commercial office land use category is literally, because remember that's only used outside of the focus areas. So there are less than 10 parcels that are designated as the commercial office land use category on the map. So it's a very limited impact in that respect. The other thing I would say is that as we go to the next process, even if the land use category says hospital, when we move into the LUMA rewrite, we can decide which zoning districts a hospital would be appropriate in and then potentially zone accordingly. So just because it's in the land use category, it's included in the definition of the land use category today, doesn't mean that we're saying that that's where it would be appropriate in the future on those parcels once we get down to the finer level of granularity in the LUMA.
Ms. Ryan?
Yeah, my only comment is to that is that I have a lot of experience of developers coming and citing past documents that say, but look, here you've said, that this is okay. So I just have concerns about making sure that if we include something that we really mean that it's okay.
Okay, so what if it's okay with y'all and you're comfortable with this, then I can bring a map back and we can have additional discussions.
Okay. All right. We can hear from our public and then come back to this. Mr. Parker, would you call in our?
Okay, we'll do it 2 by 2. So Katie Luvis followed by Anna Wu.
And a friendly reminder, if you can try to stick within the 3 minutes, we would very much appreciate that. Welcome.
Hi there. Can you all hear me okay?
You can.
Okay, great. Well, good evening. My name is Katie Luvis, and I'm with the Chamber for Greater Chapel Hill Carborough. Earlier today, our chamber, together with our friends at the Home Builders Association of Durham, Orange, and Chatham counties, emailed a letter to you with our collective feedback. Tonight, I'll speak on just some of our points, and my colleague Holly Fracaro of the Home Builders will speak to a few others. First, process. We want to thank you and compliment town staff, namely Elisa Duffy-Rogers, for managing a really thoughtful and inclusive process. Our coalition participated in dozens of meetings and provided significant feedback over the last 3+ years. And much of our feedback was incorporated, including expanding the existing focus areas and prioritizing transit-oriented density along key transportation corridors. So we thank you for that. Second, context. As you know, the Flume is a visionary document with a 30-year horizon that will help us imagine the next generation of Chapel Hill. And we believe the current version of the Flume misses some opportunities. There is significant growth coming to us from the south in Chatham County and to the northeast from Durham, New Hope Commons area. The areas in our community that abut this growth should be designated as future study areas. Specifically, we believe it is good policy to name the area of 15501 south of Southern Village to the Chatham line as a future study area. And we believe the triangle-shaped area to the northeast, that's been affectionately known as the Pikachu ear, should be named and studied as well. Doing so puts you, council, in the driver's seat to truly chart our future. So perhaps you'll see a place for tiny homes or schools or mixed-use developments. Without your action and leadership here, we will see more of the same, which is often multi-million-dollar homes on multiple acres. Third, density. We applaud the prioritization of density along transit corridors and believe this is good for social and environmental reasons. And as such, we recommend that you take density up a notch, especially around the bus rapid transit stops on MLK Boulevard. Specifically, we encourage you to modify the Flume to reflect more mixed use, higher density development and redevelopment within a 5 to 10 minute walk around either side of MLK corridor, allow buildings closer to the street, and eliminate setbacks. Finally, perspective. We encourage you to remember what we learned from the leaders of Ann Arbor during the intercity visit. They limited their development 8 stories, and then a few years later, wish they had more than doubled it. In closing, we thank you for coordinating a thoughtful process to chart our future and appreciate you considering these suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Anna Wu, followed by Simon George.
Good evening, Mayor Heminger and members of Town Council. We commend you and your staff on the development of the Charting Our Future initiative and would like to thank you for meeting with us on several occasions throughout the development of the future land use map. We appreciate the opportunity to provide feedback and know that collaboration between the town and university is essential to our community's vitality and sustainability. It's crucial that the future land use map allow the university to continue its mission of teaching, research, and public service through 2050 and beyond. Chancellor Guskowitz has sent you a letter outlining our comments and concerns on the future land use map, as it will serve as the town's primary planning document until 2050 and will inform the rewrite of the land use management ordinance. The university recommends that the future land use map reflects property owned by the university and its associated entities, including the endowment, foundation, and real estate holdings. Recognition of these properties is helpful to the community and developers as it provides a cross-reference to parcels included in our 2019 campus master plan. The university also requests changes to the university land use category to better reflect the variety of uses necessary to support the university's mission as a center of research, scholarship, and creativity, while also providing the flexibility to accommodate uses not yet envisioned to serve future generations. We recommend that the university land use category should include, but not be limited to, academic buildings, residence halls, administrative offices, conference facilities, recreational facilities, retail establishments, transportation and parking facilities, medical and health services, hospitals, and athletic facilities, to just name some. We request the inclusion of the university land use in the matrix of character types in all focus areas that include university parcels, including North and South Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, downtown, and the North Carolina 54 corridor. University facilities are planned for a 75 to 100-year horizon and must be flexible enough to adapt from one use to another. Designating university development as either mixed use or commercial office would significantly impact our ability to fully utilize university land beyond our main campus. In summary, we want to reinforce the importance of having the future land use map reflect property ownership by the university, the breadth of the university land use category, and recognition of university land use on parcels owned by the university, endowment, foundation, and real estate holdings in order for the university to continue to meet its mission. We believe incorporating these comments and feedback is consistent with your desire to cooperate and collaborate with all towns' regional partners, as noted in the guiding statement of the future land use map. Thank you for your time this evening and for your consideration of our recommended changes. Please let me know if I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Simon George, followed by Holly Vaccaro.
Hi, this is Simon George with UNC Healthcare. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Dr. Burke shared a letter with you all over the last couple of days, and I want to read out a couple of excerpts from that. Again, I'm Simon George. I'm Assistant Vice President of Real Estate and Development for UNC Health. Chapel Hill is a unique community with a rich history and future opportunities. Creating a land use plan that both protects the town's character while promoting growth and development is challenging. We appreciate the time you've put into the flume, as well as the opportunity to share our feedback on the proposed map. Like Chapel Hill, UNC Health is a unique institution. We have many partners, including UNC Chapel Hill and the state of North Carolina, but also have parts of the organization that operate like private businesses. Overall, our goal is to continue fulfilling our mission of improving the health and well-being of North Carolinians and also others whom we serve. We want to ensure that the proposed flume will allow us to remain mission-focused in the decades to come. The following are the UNC Health's comments and concerns with the flume as presented. The land use categories. We've reached out to staff regarding the land use categories and requested the more specific language regarding the healthcare be included. Under university land use, we've asked for the removal of medical facilities and clinics and requested the inclusion of medical health services and hospitals. Under commercial office land use, we've requested the inclusion of medical health services hospitals. The relationship between UNC Chapel Hill and UNC Health is critical for both organizations. So we also support the university's proposed revisions to the university land use description. Those properties utilized by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, including, but not limited to, academic buildings, residence halls, admin offices, conference facilities, recreational facilities, retail establishments, parking, medical health services, hospitals, athletic facilities, research facilities, and other land uses that support the university's mission. Under character types, we've met with the staff to discuss our suggestions for character types also. Under commercial office character type, we propose the inclusion of medical health services hospitals, research facilities, and the removal of less intense laboratory facility and maker spaces, because the reason we said that was because we struggled with defining what less intense really means. But finally, under collaboration, so in addition to the items outlined above, we request that additional conversations about the flume be inclusive with your key partners, including UNC Health. Your guiding statement from the draft flume is to cooperate and collaborate with all of the town's regional partners, especially the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and UNC Healthcare. UNC Healthcare and UNC Chapel Hill are economic drivers in the Chapel Hill community and the state of North Carolina. Partnership and collaboration between UNC Health, UNC Chapel Hill, and the town is imperative for the continued success of all three entities. UNC Health feels that the aforementioned items will allow us to continue serving our community as both Chapel Hill and the healthcare system grow and evolve. We've planned our buildings to maximize their lifespan and therefore request this flexibility to use, adapt, and reuse our buildings as needed to achieve this mission. And again, thank you for your review of the recommended changes to flume, and we'll be happy to speak further with you all about it.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last person we have signed up is Holly Vaccaro.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm Holly Vaccaro, the CEO of the Home Builders Association of Durham, Orange, and Chatham counties. I'll echo Katie Lubis's praise of the very thoughtful process and especially give thanks to Alyssa Rogers for meeting with our group many times over the past several years. We are grateful for the opportunity to have provided significant feedback during this process. And while much of our feedback was received and incorporated in the future land use map with its, I'm sorry, I may have missed something. No, I didn't. With its 30-year horizon, it should be a living and breathing document. And the current version misses some opportunities to be more clear about our future vision. Regarding context, I'll echo Katie's comments regarding including the 15501 south of Southern Village to the Chatham line and the ETJ to the northeast as a future focus study. This is an opportunity to consider unique housing opportunities like tiny homes, pocket neighborhoods, and homes affordables to our teachers, our grocery store workers, clergy, and middle income workers wishing to live in Chapel Hill. And Katie is right, if it's not done, developments will be considered on a case-by-case basis. And as is, the only developments that pencil out are large lot, multi-million-dollar homes. It's important to highlight that the Flume focus areas include only 20% of the geographic area of town, leaving 80% of our town without a vision. 30 years is a long time for a majority of our town to lack a vision. We hope you will make this a living, breathing document and add additional phases in the coming years to chart a bright future for the areas of town not included in this process, especially the residential areas currently identified on the map in light yellow. This is important to us because it's difficult to find moderately priced housing options in Chapel Hill. We understand that staff will be recommending a missing middle scan to be included in the next phase and are very encouraged by this opportunity. It's our hope that this scan will provide the data necessary to justify our request that a future phase includes much more of the sections of town not currently part of the Flume. Ultimately, when we move into the land use management ordinance rewrite phase, we would like to see an innovative move by council that addresses single family lot sizes, setbacks, and eliminates floor area ratios in order to deliver diverse housing options for the many families who work in Chapel Hill and would very much like to live here so that they and their children can benefit from all of the amenities that we have enjoyed as residents of Chapel Hill. You can also expect us to advocate for the inclusion of best practices regarding green building and storm water management. By recognizing and encouraging these best practices in both new and redevelopment, you'll ensure a net positive result in improving our community. We feel strongly that homes and buildings in our community should be a visible point of pride rather than hidden behind trees. My local HBA has the largest green building council in the nation. So trust me, we believe in good environmental stewardship, but not to the detriment of housing affordability or access to services. Again, please accept my sincerest appreciation for the thoughtful process to chart our future and for the opportunity to present these future phase suggestions this evening.
Thank you. All right, is anyone else wishing to speak on the item this evening?
I do not see any hands raised. Amy, am I missing anybody? But I don't see anything.
Okay.
So far, nobody is calling out to us in the chat. So I think that's it.
Council, we're not voting on the Flume this evening. We would only be voting to close the public hearing. Questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Ryan.
Again, my only concern is I'm happy that UNC and UNC Healthcare are partnering with us on this in this effort. They're very important parts of the community. And I just want to make sure that, again, because we haven't had a lot of time with their suggestions, that we understand the implications of all the changes that they're asking for. So I don't know how we accommodate that within this process, but I would very much like some information to come back from staff at our next meeting.
Amy Harvey is saying we have another public comment.
I just saw that. So Michael, can you, looks like Ms. McClintock has raised her hand. You're muted, Michael. There you go.
Amy, can you let her in?
He's in.
Looks like you already have. Julie, go for it.
I was very slow on getting my hand raised. I'm sorry. So I just wanted to thank everyone for working so long on this plan. I wish we could have a crowded public hearing to hear what we're all talking about here. I do feel very much these days a loss of that conviviality that comes with just being out there with other people and your friends and your community members. So we did do a petition a while back in July and really suggested that you not vote on this. I very much feel that that was not supported and that you have every intention on voting it tonight. But the reason we asked for you to hold off was because we saw so many changes in transit, work and play patterns, UNC attendance, town priorities as a result of COVID. So we strongly recommend that maybe you review this plan in a year or two when everything's back sort of to normal, because I think there will be some changes needed. And I don't really think you want to rely on a free bus system if we don't have one. And I very much hope that survives COVID. But I just think that the future is pretty uncertain right at the moment. The second comment I would have would be that the town we should structure this agreement so that the town can get some community benefits from developers so that we can get energy efficient buildings and some more affordable housing than we're getting. I think the approach to do this would be better to set the maximum height at 4 stories. You can get a carbon neutral building at 4 stories. And then we could offer the additional 2 stories as a density bonus and as a way to get the community benefits. I would like very much you to consider that. I think to just outright give 6 stories, excuse me, for so many areas of town is just too much. Third, there's some specific areas, North MLK. We sent in extensive comments to the staff on the area where you want to put housing on the north side of Weaver Dairy Road and right next to I-40. We just think that putting housing next to I-40 is really not a good idea, excuse me. And air quality is the principal reason, and also noise. In South MLK, there's a lot of 100-year flood areas that should not accommodate buildings. So we shouldn't say we're going to be covering this with buildings when we've got a flood area underneath it. On North 15501, again, we've got areas of floodplain that shouldn't be built on. And I would very much like to see Alyssa add the heritage property as a possible reservation for possible conservation. It's not so indicated now. And then on South Columbia, this Southern Gateway, there's a lot of old charming neighborhoods in this area, and I really don't think it accommodates well to large looming buildings greeting the visitor. And so I'm thinking particularly of the historic Merritt's Oil Station that's now a popular restaurant. We don't need a big, large looming building across from Merritt's. So please pay attention to that area.
Okay, your time is up.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back to council. Other comments?
Oh.
Okay, Ms. Ryan, were you continuing?
Yeah, if I can finish.
I thought you were finished.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so just, again, to reiterate, if there's a way that we can get a little more reflection on those UNC and UNC healthcare proposals. Again, I haven't had a lot of time to think about it, but not sure I'm comfortable classifying a hospital as a commercial property. I'd like to see from Ms. Rogers or from staff which properties those 10 would possibly be. So issues like that. And just as we move forward, again, I'm happy that UNC and UNC Healthcare are engaged with us in this process. And I'd like to make sure that as we move forward into those next 2 phases, that engagement continues. They have a lot of important property in town. I'm thinking especially of the Carolina North property that's on our BRT, and what an important part in the town's future that will play eventually. So just hope that we can continue that kind of partnership with them.
Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I was just going to similarly advocate for continued engagement with our partners. And yeah, I would just like to understand better if we're considering any changes. I briefly looked before the meeting at the letters, but I couldn't take the time to really take any of it in or understand the ramifications. So if we could just get a little help in understanding what those changes would mean, that would be very helpful.
Mr. Parker, then Ms. Gu.
Yeah, I think if Elisa, because I know you have been looking for more things to do, but if you could help us a bit with, understanding the implications of that, particularly, I'm puzzled. I guess I just like, maybe Mr. George or somebody can clear it up for me, but I'm pretty sure UNC doesn't really intend to build a whole lot of hospitals in Chapel Hill. I think, the one they've got now seems to be working reasonably well. So really understand if they mean hospitals as we think of, at least I think of hospitals today, or if they have something else in mind. Some a little bit more clarity on some of the definitions of what they're talking about would be a big help to me.
Okay, Ms. Gu.
Well, I want to echo the other council members on this topic as well. I feel like when I just got this document or the letters from UNC and UNC Healthcare this afternoon, I do not have enough time to really process what their proposed UNC land use category in the university character type actually means, and how does that, what's the implication of that. I don't see that there's enough details to specify what these two new categories are. I would like to have an opportunity to actually know the specifics to finalize this flume and to be ready to vote on it. I just feel like at this time I do not have enough or specific enough information at this time.
Ms. Anderson.
I just wanted to ask a process question. So if we are closing the public hearing and then leaving time for comment and then voting at the next meeting or the next, whenever we
not until the 18th.
Okay. So I guess this is what has been a little hard for me since we've gone virtual, is this whole closing and then getting the comments and then coming back. But does that mean that then we can't hear more about, like, we can't get answers to our questions at that time because we've closed the public hearing?
No, you just can't take public. You can't have, well, I'll let Ms. Anderson, I'll let our attorneys speak, but our staff can still give us information.
It's an entirely new creature, right? This 24-hour period is entirely new creature related to the COVID legislation. So our best guess is something like what you said, which is that if you need a little bit more education from staff and discussion about the particulars, things that Ms. Duffy Rogers can tell you, I think that probably doesn't constitute public hearing. But if it is such an extensive discussion that it naturally triggers the need to accept further public comment on what is being discussed, it really probably could veer into being a de facto public hearing. And so I think that I would just bear that sort of my best guidance kind of points in mind when deciding whether to close the public hearing tonight, as opposed to extending this process for one more meeting beyond the next one, which would be the 18th.
And there's no way to get around, or there's no other way to do it, right? It's either we keep the public hearing open, and then that means you have to wait again to vote.
What we know is that the statute requires that there be a 24-hour hold open period after the public hearing, and that's what the statute says, after the public hearing, and that's why the public hearing has been closed, and then you consider it at the next. Because that gives you the 24 hours. There's nothing that says you couldn't call a special meeting shortly after the next one. But I can imagine the appetite for that. So yep. that would be the only other suggestion I would have since you asked.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. Thank you. Because I think I haven't I'm trying to wrap my mind around this since we just started.
It's not easy, and it's fraught with issues, but right. It is what it is.
So if council wanted to delay closing the public hearing. We have it already scheduled to come back. There's no room on the 4th to come back on the agenda on the 18th. And then we have another council meeting in December. So that is an option that you can consider. I will tell you, we've made a decision that we didn't have enough information to make decisions about some of the downtown language, and we had said we'd be bringing this back. So that's also another option, that this is truly a living document, and then we can make amendments to it at any time, so that we could take these other opportunities that are presented to do that as well. So there are options on the table. Ms. Gu had her hand up, and then Ms. Ryan.
Well, I'm thinking that the council probably will have the opportunity to hear updates of the information and additional explanations. But if we close the public hearing now, that means the public do not have the opportunity to make their comments after they have the opportunity to review those more specific details. I feel like we need to give them that opportunity for them to do that. And also, it's not minor because UNC have multiple major properties. I think people do want to know if these 2 new categories are created, what's the implication of that? I feel like I want to know more specifics at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan.
Yeah, to your point, I see this as fundamentally different from our downtown discussion, which I think is going to be complicated. There's a lot of different interests, and you're talking about issues of character. So I think that's a really big discussion. I think this is more of there will be some discussion, but for me, it's really more of a clarification and just to make sure that what the implications of these changes would be. So I see this as a smaller, more tightly defined matter. So I mean, personally, I would be happy to continue the hearing tonight, close it after we get the information to give the public time to respond, and then have the actual vote in December.
Okay. Are other council members feeling similarly? Do we want to make a motion to that effect?
I would actually maybe suggest an alternative so I know we've been, this thing has dragged on seemingly since I was a young man. And I'm just wondering if maybe Elisa couldn't sort of send us a memo that we could look at and publish it, and then we could, keep on track to vote on November 18th rather than having to, continue to delay things. And, we'll find out that, our last meeting in December is invariably going to be very crowded anyway.
That doesn't answer the ability for the public to weigh in on the documents that were just
So
sent.
we allow public comment
Technically, we're not supposed to.
But we do.
I know. Well, I will look for a motion on either way if someone wants to.
I will move that we continue the public hearing to
November 18th.
November 18th.
I second that.
The move by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Gu. Is there other discussion from other council members? Elisa, does that proposal work?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just making sure. All right, well, we'll take a roll call vote on it then. Mayor Pro Tem Barker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyancy.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
Mayor says aye as well. So we have a unanimous decision to continue the public hearing and continue taking input at our November 18th meeting. And Ms. Rogers, we would like to, if you can give us more clarification on behind and the parcel maps, if that's a possibility before then, before the 18th, that would be great.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any other materials? Yes, Mr. Parker.
And if she could give us a recommendation. So I would like to hear Ms. Rogers' recommendation as to what she thinks the right thing for the council to do is. I would like her opinion.
Okay.
Or the staff's opinion, actually.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And Ms. Rogers, you have worked very, very hard and a lot of outreach, and this has been going on for a while, but we appreciate your patience
and your willingness. And it's always good to hear from the public. We heard some different interesting things this evening as well. So, all right, we will move on to item number 14. Consider a land use management ordinance text amendment. The proposed changes to Articles 3, 5, and Appendix A definitions pertaining to conditional zoning. And we have you back. Ms. Rogers again.
Yes, ma'am. Are y'all seeing my screen okay?
We are.
Wonderful. Good evening. I am Elisa Duffy Rogers, the LUMO project manager. And tonight we will be discussing proposed amendments to the land use management ordinance. During this presentation, I will briefly review the process for amending the land use management ordinance, explain the need for the proposed amendments, review the proposed LUMO amendments, and provide a staff recommendation. Tonight before you this evening are the LUMO amendments for action. Staff's recommendation is to adopt the resolution of consistency and enact Ordinance A. As you know, as a result of COVID-19 state of emergency, the state put in place new requirements for virtual quasi-judicial evidentiary hearings. These requirements generally state that all individuals with standing must be notified and provide written consent for a remote hearing. In some instances, it can be very challenging to identify all those with standing prior to the meeting. Consequently, many applications have been delayed. To facilitate those applications, these proposed amendments provide a legislative option for development review using conditional zoning that does not require or have the same restrictions on a remote hearing. Fortunately, many of these proposed amendments also bring the LUMO into compliance with 160D, which is the new state enabling legislation that governs how local jurisdictions can exercise land use authority in areas such as zoning and subdivisions. Prior to the town incorporating conditional zoning into the LUMO, many development options required a special use permit, including the residential special standards conditional use district and the mixed use village district. The ordinance before you this evening converts these two districts into conditional zoning districts with no proposed changes to the objectives and standards for these districts, and most of the sections in the proposed ordinance address this conversion. 160D requires the town to convert existing conditional use districts into conditional zoning districts. Today, the LUMO has parallel conditional use districts for all of the town's residential districts, but the LUMO does not have conditional zoning districts for our lower intensity residential districts. This ordinance proposes to create parallel conditional zoning districts for all residential districts. Another proposed amendment is changing the definition of S in the use matrix in the LUMO. This change would permit uses that are defined as special uses in the matrix, such as drive-in windows, to be considered and permitted as part of a conditional zoning application. Proposed ordinance also now includes a revision to the permitted uses within the Resource Conservation District. This proposed change, which was added after the public hearing, would permit uses currently only allowed through special use or subdivision approval in the Resource Conservation District to be considered as part of a conditional zoning application. As with all LUMO text amendments, it is necessary to evaluate if the proposed amendments are consistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed amendments are consistent with the goals in Chapel Hill 2020, particularly creating a development decision-making process that provides clarity and consistency. So the staff recommendation this evening is to adopt the resolution of consistency and enact Ordinance A.
Thank you. Are there clarifying questions from council? Are there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Michael, you're muted.
I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay. I'll bring it back to council. Comments, questions, concerns?
I'll move we adopt the resolution of consistency.
Second. Been moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Stegman. Any comments of things that haven't been shared? Okay, I know we're working through all the 160D processes as we go along. All right, so roll call vote, please. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncy.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Quinn.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
The mayor says aye as well. Looking for another motion, please.
I'll move we enact ordinance A.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Ryan. Any comments? Okay, roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncy.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Quinn.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
The mayor says aye as well. Thank you very much. All right, we have item number 15. Consider an application for special use permit modification for Charterwood at 1701 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And we have Mr. Sudol with us again this evening.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Mayor. Give me just a second to get this up and running. All right, can you all see that correctly?
Yes.
Great. So good evening, Mayor and Town Council. My name is Michael Sudol with the Chapel Hill Planning Department. And tonight I'm bringing back before you again an application for a special use permit modification for the requested extension to the construction completion date for the Charterwood special use permit. This item was continued from the meeting on October 7th due to questions you had regarding parking spaces and impervious surface, which the applicant is here to address this evening. I have 8 slides and it'll take about 5 minutes to get through this. The recommendation before you tonight, again, is the adoption of Resolution A, extending the construction completion date to June 25th, 2022. The application is considered a special use permit modification, but it's not a frequently occurring type of modification, since it is only to modify the required construction completion date, a deadline required by the ordinance and the special use permit that was originally approved. This request is specifically to extend the deadline by 24 months, and the town manager has already issued an allowable 1-year administrative extension, which expired as of June 25th this year. This is where we are in the process. It's been evaluated by staff and the Planning Commission and you, and is back before you again for action. This is an aerial view of the site showing its location near the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard running north to south and Weaver Dairy Road running east to west. At the time this photo was taken, the northern portion of the site was under construction, but that is now complete. As such, the yellow portion to the south is the only piece being considered tonight. The approved special use permit is for a mixed use development, and it was granted on September 24th, 2012. It was for 7 buildings and 278,000 square feet of floor area, the majority of which is completed. The current mixed-use village and residential 1 zoning will remain unchanged. So to recap all of that information, the 2012 special use permit has expired as of June 25th, but an additional extension on top of the one granted by the town manager in June 2019 can be granted by the council. That is what this request is for. And it's important to note that a concept plan was recently brought forward proposing to convert commercial space to residential, but that is not part of this application. So again, the recommendation is to extend the construction completion date to June 25th, 2022. So I'm available for any clarifying questions right now, and the applicant is also here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sudol. We actually had asked some questions and hope the applicant can answer them. We asked last meeting about what was proposed here and about the impervious surface and the change in just the way life is going on now with banks in general. So could we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. George Richley with Valentine Associates. We were here a couple of meetings ago to present this request for an extension. And just to kind of recap, SECU started this process back in 2018, closed on the property, submitted a concept plan, and shortly thereafter, we met with the neighbors that live in the neighborhood behind the development. And we were asked to take a look at the plan to see if we could reduce the impervious. And we did. We went back and took a look at the plan, and we were able to take one of the drive-through lanes out and reduce some of the parking. Now, SCCU's got standards for the number of ATM or the number of drive-through and ATM lanes they typically provide on their sites, just based on having so many operations across the state and knowing what works and what doesn't. And they typically build 5 drive-through lanes plus an ATM lane. So that's 6 lanes and over 70 parking spaces. And so our first concept plan had 4 drive-through lanes in the ATM and about 70 plus parking spaces. Well, after the meeting with the neighbors, we went back and reconsidered the plan, and we were able to cut it down. SCCU was willing to reduce down to 3 drive-through lanes in the ATM and take out several parking spaces. So we're down to 60 for SCCU, which is below what they typically, like I said, typically would use. As far as the effects of COVID and kind of how that plan is, how that plan compares and how it would be utilized today in a COVID world. Jamie Appelkuss with SCCU is on with us today, can probably speak to that better than I can. But I will tell you that, the site, this was a very expensive piece of property. It took a long time, and it was very complicated to get Charterwood approved to begin with. And this was a lot that was, it's right on MLK. It's a very high dollar piece of property. And the development that we're proposing is like 35% impervious. So it's got a giant buffer between us and the neighbors behind us. And so it is, in grand scheme of things, this is a commercial property that's very low impervious compared to others. But if Jamie has any thoughts on how the COVID's affected the site, operationally and things like that, he may be willing to share some input on that.
Thank you. That's helpful. We just didn't have any definitions or.
Yeah, and I apologize about the last meeting. We understood that the discussion was over and that there was nothing more to say. So we didn't show up to the last meeting. And it wasn't not out of disrespect or anything for the council. So
sorry.
Wanted to know.
Mr. Appelkuss, do you have anything to add to this?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, thank you. And thank you, council, for letting us come back to you tonight. I would just add, during the COVID environment, the drive-throughs actually sustained our business for several months and still are very busy across the state. A lot of our members are still nervous to come in to the branches. So the drive-through lanes have actually become more popular than ever. Regarding the site, we have worked on this for a couple of years now, as George said, and we tried to make every bit of concessions, listening to the neighbors, listening to the council. We just simply ran out of time to build it within the time frame that we needed. So that's the only thing we're asking for, is an extension for the construction phase.
Thank you. All right, any clarifying questions from council? Ms. Gu?
I think we asked the last time when we have the discussion of this item, I think that it's not only the COVID that we said that things has changed from when this project was initially approved. It is how banking is done by people. We all have personal experiences. I don't know how long that I haven't actually visited the bank, except for like using the ATM machine. I think that like you said, people are still using that when it's necessary, but that we're mainly talking about the number of parking spaces. I think that maybe there's justification for a number of lanes that we still need for drive-through, but 70 parking spaces, do we really still need that? If you can do a survey around the banks in Chapel Hill, almost never ever seen that the parking spaces has been taken up like more than 50%. It's always a huge number of empty spaces. I'm just saying that the way people are doing banking and like how they deposit the check, how do they transfer the funds, and all these basic things, and can be easily done online on your cell phone. I mean, given all these things has changed, is there any possibility or consideration that it makes sense to reduce the number of parking spaces?
Well, I'll just clarify one thing, and it's somewhat of a detail, but I was saying that we typically would have 70 plus parking spaces, but in this case, we have 60. So we did cut back the number of parking spaces already. And I think SECU is reluctant to lower that any further. So I think we really prefer to stick with the plan that we have if possible.
All right, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Mr. Parker, you're muted.
Yeah, there is not.
Okay, bring it back to council. We had asked for the description, we got the description, and the motion would be to extend the construction completion date.
I'll move we adopt resolution A, extending.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Parker. Any comments that haven't already been shared? I'll just say we appreciate you coming to share with us what the plan was, because we just didn't have an update of what it was. All right, roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncey.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye as well. Thank you for coming this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. A friendly reminder that item 16, the bridge point at 2214 and 2312 Homestead Road, has been postponed till November 6th, 18th. I'm gonna get these dates wrong. November 18th. We will hear it come back. In the meantime, they're going to be meeting with our urban designer and staff. So we'll look for some updates and changes to that project. I think that's what I was supposed to say. Sorry. There we go. Okay. Brings us to item number 17, adopt updates to the mobility and connectivity plan. And we have Bergen Watterson with us this evening.
Hi, that caught me by surprise. That came a lot faster than I thought it was going.
While you're catching your breath, I'll just share that I got a wonderful presentation from the Triangle Bikeway group for a proposed bikeway between Chapel Hill through Durham all the way to Raleigh, similar to the Path 400 in Atlanta and the Boulder Denver connector. I'm getting the name of that. It was a wonderful presentation. The MPO will be seeing this plan. It's a Triangle Bikeway study. They would like to have this project starting in 2035. So a lot of planning to go into it, but all the staffs have been working together with all the different groups. It's an exciting opportunity to have, it's called a bikeway, but it also can be a greenway. So you wouldn't have to necessarily be on a bike, but they talked about with the invention of e-bikes and other people wanting to commute in different kinds of ways, that there would be opportunities with this bikeway to get people to and from work and to and from events. So they've had a survey out there and they've had over 2,000 responses to this survey. So I commend the vision of folks wanting to put this together, and you'll be hearing more about it in the future, but that's another aspect of not just within our own community, but connecting to other communities. So it's exciting. All right, caught your breath, Bergen?
I have. I feel like you're probably seeing, let me see.
We've got the mobility plan complete streets update page.
Okay, great, thank you. So, sorry about that. So good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Bergen Watterson, Transportation Planning Manager. I'm here tonight to present some updates that we're proposing to the mobility and connectivity plan. I have 12 slides and should probably take less than 10 minutes. So I am seeking action tonight. The recommendation is that the council approve resolution R23, adopting updates to the mobility and connectivity plan. So if you recall, the mobility plan was adopted in October of 2017. This is our guiding bike, pedestrian, and access to transit plan. It's long-term. It helps guide our development. Developers reference it when they come in with an application to see if there's any bike or pedestrian projects along their frontage or through their property. It helps us identify projects to submit for funding to DOT, to put into the mobility, into the MPO plans, et cetera. The primary goal of the mobility plan is to increase our alternative commute mode share. So those who bike, walk, and take transit to work to 35% by 2025. We have been pretty well on track to do that with about a percentage increase a year. We'll see what COVID does to that. And with the 2020 census, we should have some real solid data on that when it comes out. So why are we updating the mobility plan now? The reason for that is in 2019, the North Carolina Department of Transportation adopted a new complete streets policy. And they had one before, and it was essentially, local municipalities could interpret it as, if you want us, we might consider letting you pay for a bike or pedestrian facility on one of our roads. I mean, they acknowledged that complete streets are a good thing, but they were, there was no money involved. It was really a pretty minimal policy. So in August of 2019, they came full circle on this. They passed this policy that basically DOT will pay for a bike or pedestrian and some transit facilities along their roads, so the roads that are maintained by DOT, as long as it's in an adopted plan. And this is huge. When they come in and do the 15501 updates or the NC 54 upgrades, if we have these bike and pedestrian facilities in our plans, they will pay for them fully. The transit facilities that they will pay for are landing pads and bus pullouts. So we made sure to include those also. So just a refresher, complete streets are basically streets for everybody. I know we try to build them as much as possible and retrofit our older streets to look to fit this model. It's interdisciplinary. They guarantee safety and access for all users, from young children to older folks, people with disabilities, bikes, pedestrians, transit users, drivers, everybody. All modes have safety and accessibility on their streets. So what we did back in probably February or March, I think we started this. We looked through the mobility plan and identified all of the facilities that were proposed on DOT roads. Took that list and examined them and said, how can we make these better? Is this the best facility that we can have on this street? And if not, we didn't go out and do, measuring streets or feasibility studies or anything like that, but we did try to be as context sensitive as we could, given our resources in-house. And so, for example, a lot of roads with bike lanes proposed, we said, well, should this be protected bike lanes, or on the higher volume, higher speed roads, maybe a side path or a multi-use path would be a better fit. So basically we went through and we wanted to have the absolute best facility possible in our adopted plan. So if and when DOT comes in to do a major construction project on those roads, we're well positioned to at least start in a good place with negotiations for what type of facility should be on there. So this is just a snapshot of the chart that was included in your packet. I believe it started on page 455, which I commend you for reading these packets. That is an extraordinary number of pages. This is just an example of what we proposed. We had to go through and digitize all of the facilities that were proposed in the original mobility plan. That took a good amount of work. did not have that data from the consultants when they finished in 2017. So we tried to copy the maps because since they were so nice in the original mobility plan, went through, and this is, you know, we use the story map for a lot of our public outreach. The map that you're seeing right now is the final product. It's showing not only what was proposed in 2017, but it also includes our updates that we're proposing in 2020. And this map was included also in your packet on page 470 if you want to take a closer look. We also have all of these materials posted on the Mobility and Connectivity Plan website, included with a story map that's an interactive, has all of the maps interactive, so you can click on the different lines and see what's proposed, slide the thing back and forth to see the difference between 2017 and 2020. So as I mentioned, DOT is also agreeing to pay for some transit facilities. So we worked with Chapel Hill Transit to identify the stops that they have along DOT roads that could use enhancements, primarily the landing pads, since we don't really do the bus pullouts so much here in Chapel Hill. So based on the volume of riders at each stop, they propose different size landing pads on those stops that we don't have them. So we're including this map as an appendix to our plan so that we have this again as part of our adopted plan. And finally, in 2019, the town staff worked with the town of Carrboro, DOT, and UNC on the NC 54 Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Plan. This was finally in response. We'd been asking DOT for a number of years to help us improve the safety along 54 out there between Old Fayetteville Road in Carrboro and Manning Drive in Chapel Hill, where there's a lot of transit ridership. There's a lot of apartments and other residences where the people are forced to run across the highway either in the morning or in the afternoon to get to and from the bus stops. So finally, in early 2019, DOT agreed and they funded this study to look at both motorized and non-motorized travel on the corridor, access to transit, you know, bike and pedestrian volumes, all of the things. And at the end of the year, published this final study that has a number of recommendations at the intersections, at the driveways, you know, building sidewalks, moving bus stops, signalizing some of those apartment driveways. So a lot of really good recommendations came out of that. And instead of trying to incorporate all of them into our plan, we are attaching this as another appendix to our plan so that we have it in our adopted comprehensive plan. So with all of that, we did do a pretty significant, as much as is possible in these virtual times, because the mobility plan is part of the 2020 comprehensive plan. We went to our advisory boards. We talked with TCAB and the Parks and Greenways and Recreation Commission. We held a virtual public meeting with about 35 attendees and a really good, I mean, solid hour and a half of Q&A. I was really happy with how that went. We held 2 days with virtual office hours and had a number of people attend those as well. We went to the Planning Commission at the beginning of October, and then now we are here at Council hoping for action. So again, the recommendation is that Council approve the resolution adopting plans to the Mobility and Connectivity Plan.
Thank you, Bergen.
You're welcome.
Right. Council members, clarifying questions. Let's go.
So just for clarification, does this plan only include the NC DOT roads, or does it include our town's local roads as well?
Yeah, it does include the town roads as well. The only ones that we updated were the DOT roads. So everything that was originally in the plan on our local roads in 2017 remains in the plan, but we weren't trying to do a full sale update. We just really wanted to do the DOT roads this time. And I anticipate that, you know, we'll probably do a full new bike and ped study probably within the next 3 to 5 years.
I see. But is there a timeline? Of course, for the NCDOT, they control the timeline of when these things on the plan that will actually be implemented. Well, especially now if they're willing to commit to pay for it. then I think it makes sense that we are going to follow their schedule to implement those plans. But for the local roads that included in those plans, what kind of timeline or funding situations that we are facing? Can you give us more information on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of our facilities, the reality of it is right now that a lot of our facilities are implemented by developers. When they come in, you know, they are required to build what's on their frontage or on their property with it, if they come with a special use permit or conditional zoning. We have a few projects with funding on the horizon. As you know, the Estes project is, I know I feel like I've been saying this for years, but I really think this time that we're close to construction. We're expecting the last of the funds to be released by DOT in the next couple of weeks. So there's that. We've got funding to continue the Fordham Boulevard side paths all the way to Old Durham Road. So that's a committed funded project. We have funding for Estes Drive between MLK and the Carborough border. So on Estes extension. Those are the projects that we know are funded. We continue to submit our priority projects to DOT through their prioritization process. But from what I understand, there's not much hope of getting really anything funded in this next round because of DOT's funding cash flow crisis. And we have our own town CIP process. But as we know, our budget and our funding is fairly limited right now.
So does the town at this time has a schedule of like repave those roads, and can we, like, as part of this connectivity and mobility plan, can we commit that every time when there's an opportunity to repave the road, we are going to incorporate this mobility and the connectivity plans into our repaving projects?
Yeah, absolutely. We, so the Public Works Department puts out a 5-year plan for the resurfacing. So the roads that they're planning on doing in the next 5 years. And we have a process for going through that. We, they send it out to different staff, and then we go through it in our bike and pedestrian team and make sure that we're able to flag the roads that we have facilities planned for in the mobility plan. And, for the most part, if it is just bike lanes, they're able to do it. Like we have a plan to do Country Club Road next summer and install a climbing bike lane on that. The problem with that comes when there's a proposed bike lane, but it would be required to widen the road. That's when, it gets a little more complicated. Or if it's, you need to remove a turn lane in order to put bike lanes in, gets a little more complicated. But for the most part, with the straightforward ones, absolutely.
And that's part of it. You didn't mention the West End restriping project that's supposed to happen next summer. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that will have bike lane on it as well.
Yeah, that'll have really nice buffered bike lanes. And that, the difference with that's a DOT road and they require full traffic analysis and engineering plans. Whereas when it's a local road, we don't have to do all of that, which is nice.
All right, any other clarifying questions from council? All right, anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
There is not.
Wow. Okay, I bring it back to council. Any other comments or statements or motions?
I will move R23.
Okay, duly motioned by Mr. Parker and Ms. Anderson. Ms. Kingman, did you have a question?
I just wanted to quickly say thank you to Bergen and staff. I think they just did a really good, thorough job with this, and I really appreciate it. That's all.
I will second that. And the poor Bergen, when she gives us our monthly MPO updates, we always grill her about these projects that are underway that are on the list. I will say we have benefited from our staff who's done great planning. The fact that we've had shovel-ready projects has allowed us to move forward when some other projects couldn't move forward in other communities. But having them already designed and that far along the path gives us opportunities to secure funding that we might not have gotten otherwise. So I commend them on continuing that strategy to not just wait until they think there might be funding, but to go ahead and do the planning and all it takes to get it ready, shovel-ready. It's only going to benefit our community. So thank you on that. All right.
Well, I just want to add that website that Bergen mentioned with connectivity and mobility website that they have reviewed and over the summer actually had very cool features. I urge everyone to click on there and check it out. I think they put a lot of time onto it. It's very cool. It's dynamic, it's interactive. So you can see that how things are going to change over time. I think it's a great project. So thank you so much for doing that.
I think you had some great interns helping you with that, is it right?
Yeah, absolutely. A huge shout out to Eli, who made the story map, and Josh, who did a lot of the work with the actual mobility plan, and of course, Jomar as well.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Been motion and second, so we'll call for a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncey.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
And Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
And Mayor says aye as well. Thank you. Great job. And if you haven't played with the new map, it's fun to play with, and we can post out there. Maybe we can get Rand to post something for people to know that that's out there now. I think that would be good to post on our to send out in our e-news and all that kind of stuff. So I can get him to do that. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. All right. That brings us to item number 18. Consider an amendment to the water sewer service area boundary, otherwise known as the Wasamba Amendment. Mr. Lyles is with us.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Corey Lyles with the Planning Department. Is everyone seeing the presentation all right?
Yes.
Great. Here to present a proposed Wasamba boundary amendment extending water and sewer service. This presentation is 10 slides, should take around 6 minutes. So the impetus for this presentation here before you tonight is a petition that we received back in February from some property owners. They own some property here at 1204 and 1205 Bayberry Drive, and their petition was a request for water and sewer service. They fall outside of the water and sewer service area boundary, which is reflected on the town's land use plan, and which is jointly approved for multiple utility service areas through what is known as the Water and Sewer Management Policy and Boundary Agreement, which from now on we'll call Wasamba. The lots in question do fall outside the service boundary, which is shown on this map here as the dotted line. So a little bit about Wasamba. It's a 5-party agreement that covers public utility service areas throughout Orange County. It was established in 2001 with the agreement of the 5 parties that you see there. Our town of Chapel Hill, along with Carborough and Hillsborough, and Owasso and Orange County. So the intent was to align the service areas for water and sewer provided by Owasso, Hillsborough, with the growth management plans for the towns and the county. And it set some boundaries for where water and sewer service can be provided. And it established that the boundary and other aspects of the agreement could be amended with the consent of all parties, all 5. So the process we're following in this case, we received the petition in February. The item is before council to consider a resolution tonight approving the boundary amendment. If approved, it would go to the other 4 partners for their respective governing boards to consider an amendment. And if they had any differences of approval, I would come back around to the parties to seek a shared agreement. We received a question about this process. There's not a prescribed process for a Wasamba amendment that would include anything like a joint meeting. We would certainly look towards those kinds of bigger engagements of the parties if the amendment was more substantial. In this case, where it mostly impacts 2 lots, we reached out to staff who would be involved in bringing this amendment to other boards of the other agencies, and they advised us that if if this town council approved a boundary amendment, that they wouldn't see an issue with other parties being amenable to an amendment. So going back to the location in question, Bayberry Drive is within the Hunts Reserve neighborhood on the south side of Chapel Hill. You see the town limit line here and Morgan Creek. And then this is south of there. Again, the existing dashed line shows the existing service area. And we studied all of the properties that are accessed off of Bayberry Drive and some other roads of the neighborhood that are not currently within or not fully within the service area. To provide some more background info, we reached out to OWASA, certainly key partners in this because they would be providing the service. They stated that it is feasible to provide water and sewer service to these two lots. In fact, there are water and sewer lines in the neighborhood that already extend beyond the boundary for water and sewer service. They extend that far because they were built before the Wasamba Agreement was adopted in 2001. The Hunts Reserve neighborhood was approved for construction in 1997, and most of the homes there were built by 2000. So all existing homes in the Hunts Reserve neighborhood do have service. And even as that boundary line has pulled back to not include all the lots, the homes that existed by 2001 were grandfathered in to keep receiving service based on a policy jointly adopted by the town and OWASA in 2001. So we're looking at here is just two lots left that don't have service because they did not have homes built on them prior to Wasamba's adoption. We've proposed an area here that is a total of just under 32 acres, which includes everything in the dashed yellow line. It picks up all or part of 9 lots where service is already provided. You see all of them here. And so in that case, it's just recognizing that the service is there and adding it to the service area to reflect that. And then the actual impact of new lots receiving water and sewer service is just the 2 that are the subject of the petition. Staff found that this amendment could be approved based on the idea that it provides a consistent policy for providing utility service to all of the neighborhood. All the other homes in the Hunts Reserve neighborhood and off of Bayberry Drive do already have water and sewer service, and the 2 additional lots would just be a small addition that would put them on par with their neighbors. Before we open that for discussion, there's one other item I wanted to mention. In engaging with with staff from the other agencies of Wasamba, we heard from them that there are other cases where the boundary, it creates some minor discrepancies. And as opposed to this case, it's more often when the boundary is intended or appears to be intended to follow natural features such as streams or ridge lines. So when those boundaries were first mapped in 2001, it wasn't done by survey, it was done by very less precise countywide data. That data through GIS has become more accurate in the past 19 years. And so when they could see some parcels that it's not clear if they're fully or partially within the boundary, seeing whether or not there seems to be an intent to follow a natural feature could clarify that. And therefore, maybe it does not need to be elevated to approval by all 5 parties. So the party agency staff were interested in drafting a policy that would address minor discrepancies administratively through staff approval, and interested in seeing if that could be a future item brought before all of the governing boards to consider as a standing policy. So we are interested in hearing whether council members would want to consider a policy for staff interpretation in cases of minor boundary discrepancies. And aside from that, we are making a recommendation that you adopt R24, a resolution to amend the OWASA primary service area boundary in the Wasamba agreement.
Okay. Are there clarifying questions from council? I sent in a couple and I just want to say, okay, Ms. Ryan?
Corey, could you kind of give us an idea of what you mean by minor discrepancies? Have you guys thought about what that would entail?
Yeah, in terms of the realm of amount of area added, it would probably even fall less than what we're proposing tonight, because right now we're talking about something on the order of around 32 acres, where the parcels are close to a ridge line, but where we'd probably be looking at even narrow situations where the boundary appears to follow the ridge line, but the actual surveyed, if there was an actual survey of the ridge line that showed it shifted over by 50 feet or a number to be determined, that could be within the realm of a staff interpretation. Same if it came close to but didn't quite follow a stream or some other type of boundary, such as the boundary of the rural buffer. So the policy would define what types of features could be reconciled with the Wasamba boundary, and by what amount. That would be up for discussion, but it would be, when I say minor, it would be on an order less than or certainly no more than what's being proposed tonight.
Okay, so there would be a size restriction and then a limitation to having some, because the issue with the natural features, I know some of that is because you don't want a pumping station or, you know, considerations about that. So it wouldn't just be a neighborhood decides they want to have access and they petition and, you know, and they fall on the wrong side of the ridge line, they would not be eligible then.
We've only loosely discussed this, but that does not sound like the type of case that would be proposed. And certainly the exact amount of acreage or the exact qualifying features would all be subject to discussion and agreement by council and the other partners.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Parker?
Yeah, but just to clarify, that what we're being asked to vote on tonight is just narrowly the adjustment of the boundary. So in terms of giving the interest in drafting a policy, that's just sort of a head nod. But what we're actually voting on tonight in the resolution is just changing that boundary for that neighborhood. Is that correct?
That is correct. The resolution would give town council's approval of changing the boundary and request that the other four parties consider doing the same. The separate staff policy, as you said, would be just kind of a head nod or informal approval.
Ms. Gu, then Ms. Anderson.
Well, given this Wasamba boundary is a 5-party agreement that you said, can you just inform or clarify what is the procedure as laid out in the original agreement in order to adjust or shift those boundaries? What kind of procedures should be followed? Can you explain that?
What the agreement states is just a simple line that the agreement, including the text of the agreement or the boundary lines, may be amended with the consent of all 5 parties. It doesn't lay out any specific steps beyond that. And so it's not often that there has been an amendment. And so I can't say there's a standardized process. Certainly if it was larger, we would think about some more extensive engagement. But again, we spoke with staff of the other agencies. In this case, they said, well, it's a small amount of property. It is within Chapel Hill's jurisdiction. So they were interested in knowing if Chapel Hill would approve, and beyond that have not raised any issues or concerns about also approving.
Okay. Okay, so you're saying that it just said that upon consensus of the parties, then it can be adjusted, but it hasn't laid out the procedure or steps that must be followed in order to make those adjustments. Then can you cite the precedents or what happened in the past, the cases of when those boundaries are being shifted or adjusted?
I can cite one previous case, which I believe is the most recent and one that I was involved with in 2017. Town of Carrboro was interested in including some properties off of Smith Level Road in the boundary area. And I think all of those properties already had service. It was the same sort of situation where they were grandfathered in and there were not even any empty lots. And so we took a similar approach. The staff had conversations and worked together to prepare the materials, and then it went to the 5 parties for approval without first having any sort of joint meeting of the boards. Certainly when it comes down to the final approval of any Wasamba amendment, that's been accomplished through resolutions separately adopted by all 5 parties. So what council is asked to consider tonight is the mechanism of approval that's always been used for Wasamba amendments.
So you're saying that it needs to be approved by separate resolutions, means Chapel Hill approve its resolution and Carrboro approve resolution, and then do that separately.
Correct. We approach
in a joint meeting. There's not a joint meeting procedure or then voted all together. It's not like that.
That's not necessary per the terms of Wasamba. A joint meeting could be of interest if there is.
We don't vote at the joint meetings. We do not vote at Assembly of Government meetings.
Like in Assembly of Government meetings, it's not the mechanism for issues like this, for adjustment like this.
Right.
Okay.
Even if there were a joint meeting, it would then proceed to this step of the separate resolutions.
Okay. So another question is, you're saying that this adjustment is small, but is there any concern that this will set a precedence for the future developers or homeowners that are coming forward and say, we need to make those small adjustments on our lots? I think they're pretty, I mean, there are lots of homeowners or property owners that have the property that's sitting on the boundary. If we set this as a precedent, is there any possibility, or what do you think? Will this set a precedence for people to come in and say, we need to expand the boundary?
So I think some useful considerations in this case is that it's 2 lots. The water and sewer lines are already in place up to the property lines. So OWASA would not be extending their lines. It would just be hookups for the property owners. If there was a case where lines had to actually be extended to get to lots outside of the boundary, I think that would be a different type of consideration. And all other lots in the neighborhood are already receiving water and sewer service. So we're not adding a whole neighborhood or even a whole street worth of lots. And I believe the resolution tries to lay out some of those considerations. If council is interested in making sure this isn't an unintended precedent, we can consider maybe other language in the resolution. But those are what I see as the factors that make this a distinct case.
Ms. Anderson?
I kind of had a similar question just about precedent or having some. This particular one doesn't concern me at all. I mean, it's 2 lots in a neighborhood where all the other lots have it. And it actually helped me that you clarified, because I could not figure out how the lots were like under 6 acres each. And then we were doing 30 acres, but you're saying it's just making it official basically. So that was super helpful. I guess my main question is kind of what you were saying, just how do we decide when it's big enough to be considered a little differently? How do we make sure that we're not, I mean, this one again is in town limits, so it kind of really only impacts us really, but just making sure that we're not approving something and then sending it to the other boards and they may not be comfortable with something, but we've kind of now put them in a bad position. I don't know, just thinking, I think generally it would be good. And I'm sorry, I've moved from questions to comments apparently in my own mind, but just thinking about what a process can be for things like this, since we don't see them that often. But I don't, I'm sure that as we get more and more development kind of on those boundaries, that folks are going to have this interest. So just figuring out ways to make sure that we keep with our kind of strategic plans, what our council goals are, what our partners' goals are, and just having a process so that we can kind of do that in coordination. But this one doesn't seem like a problem to me, I guess. So I have that process question and precedent question, but not so much about this particular one.
And again, I think we've tried to highlight some things in the resolution that make this a more particular case. And if there's other ways we want to formalize what type of things set a precedent or what type of process we want to have, perhaps that's a separate component from bringing back a policy around staff interpretation of boundaries. Maybe there's also a policy around agreed upon procedures related to the kind of scope of the amendment that might come along in the future.
Okay. I'd send a question into our attorney to see if there was any conflicting ordinances or resolutions from the WASA side, but it sounds like Corey's kind of answered that the real amendment process is that all the entities do it separately by resolution. So I don't know if she has anything else to add on this particular situation.
I do not. Corey first answered it for me and I confirmed it independently. I agree with him. So thank you for that, Corey. He's a fountain of knowledge on this subject, which is lucky for me.
Okay, well, thank you. All right. I know we have a member of the public wishing to speak on this item, and if anyone is wishing to speak, please let us know by raising your hand. But Mr. Parker?
Yes, so far the only person who seems to wish to speak is Julie McClintock.
Okay.
You. Okay.
We can hear you.
Thank you. So it does seem that this petition you received seems to be a simple matter, just adding 11 lots to a water and sewer area, a sewer service area, when 8 to 9 are already served. But it isn't a simple matter, and I'm going to demonstrate why. The rub is that this request directly contradicts both town and OWASA policies. Therefore, we think you must not establish a precedent by approving this exception to the intergovernmental agreement. Since both lots are vacant, we suggest you ask staff to come back with some missing information before making standalone decisions and sending this to other jurisdictions. So what's the missing information? The analysis of attachment 7. Have you all read attachment 7? It's the last one. About existing OWASA and town policies that this request would violate. Information on definition of, for example, WASA long-term interest area, and history of the hunt reserve adjacent to these properties, which is now owned by the North Carolina Botanical Garden. While the petitioner says granting this request would not set a precedent, in fact, the resolutions describing the situation from OWASA on April 19, 2001, and a council resolution on March 5, 2001, directly reference this situation. When OWASA, this very same situation occurred, OWASA sought guidance from the town, and so they issued a policy in consultation with the town council. And it says, consistent with its past practices, OWASA will not permit the extension of water and sewer facilities for service connections beyond Chapel Hill's urban service area, except when OWASA determines, in consultation with Orange County Health, that such extension is necessary to alleviate an adverse public health condition. The Chapel Hill policy mirrors the same content. Therefore, it seems prudent to deny the resolution. And I'd like to also offer a comment. It's really unwise to delegate this kind of level of decision to the staff on these interjurisdictional matters. The water and sewer boundary agreement has served for decades to support our region's land use policies. We believe elected officials who are party to the agreement should continue to make decisions involving changes. And I'll just ask a personal note. You can see I'm a little passionate about this, but I was chair of OWASA when we did the water and sewer boundary agreement, and we worked closely with the town council. And I know why we did that agreement, and we pushed for it. Why? Because the land use agreements that we had put in place in '86 weren't holding too well. People were stretching out lines. They were making exceptions right and left. And so we recognized that we needed another means to protect our land use policies. So that's the reason that this whole thing was founded. And while it just seems, while it's only 2 lots, it in fact sets a precedent. And the next one person that asks, you're going to feel beholden to do it. So, and then you go to your partners and then they're going to do it. And pretty soon you don't have a land use plan anymore. So I feel rather strongly about this, and I hope you'll deny it. But if you don't feel that you can do that tonight, I would suggest getting the additional information and setting up on these policies that are in place. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll bring it back to council for comments. Corey, do you have anything to share about Amendment 7? Attachment 7, sorry.
Yes. The attachment 7 is a policy that OWASA and Chapel Hill agreed to address when a WSAMBA was adopted, some exceptions. And one idea in that policy, which was actually the reason for attaching it, is that it states the idea of if the home was built before 2000 and the service line was built before 2000, then a lot can have access to services. And that's a ways of explaining why other lots outside of the boundary do already have service, the ones that already have homes. So there's that idea in the policy from 2001. And then, as Ms. McClintock pointed out, the idea that an extension could also be made outside the boundary area in the case of adverse public health conditions. We're not claiming that that's the case here, but to clarify, that policy is for exceptions that could fall at a approval below the scale of a WSAMBA amendment with just agreement of OWASA and the town. Here we're talking about a WSAMBA amendment, which is agreement of all 5 parties, which is a mechanism to expand the boundary in any case that anyone agrees to, not simply because of the adverse public health conditions.
And it's unlikely that the boundary would ever be extended beyond what you've shown us here because it's a nature preserve on the other side, right? So it would just be to that, and it would, if we moved, we'd be more consistent because it would encapsulate the ones that actually already do have service. Okay. Yes. All right, Ms. Gu?
I have this question I forgot to ask. I mean, before the public comment, I understand from your drawing that it's 2 lots out of the 11. 9 of them already have the service. The 2 does not have the service. But just looking at the map, I don't know if they're all to scale. These 2 lots seems like very big lots. Do you know what's the area of these 2 lots?
Each of the lots is around 5.5 acres.
So it's about 10 acres.
Yeah, 10 acres between the 2.
So at this time, they have not communicated with us like what they're going to do with these 10 acres, right? Or
correct. I mean, they're going to be limited in what they're able to do on those lots, something on the order of a single family home.
Why they're obligated to single family homes?
That's how it's zoned.
But they can always come back to ask to rezone it.
They could, and that would be a council consideration. And just the fact that they have water and sewer service would not in any way obligate or imply that other zoning was necessary when these 2 lots have the same zoning as the surrounding properties currently.
Yeah, so I think the reason I'm asking, just I want to clarify that if we allowed expanding this boundary to these two lots, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're two single little like the rest of the drawings on the map that you show over here. It doesn't necessarily mean that it implies we will add two houses into that boundary. It could be a whole community. If the developer, I mean, it's possible. I'm saying that like, because they have not given us the details of their plan. So we do not know at this time what are, after we expanded the boundary, what they're going to propose, how much they're going to propose. Is that correct?
They have not shared plans of what they're proposing. The existing approval would fall under the same approval as this neighborhood. So if they wanted to do something aside from a single family home, it would need to come back to council for consideration.
Yeah, sure. Just like all the other rezoning projects that it has to come to the council going to make the decision. But I'm just saying that we cannot make the assumption like just because the rest of 9 of the lots that because they're already being built at the time when the boundary is drawn. So I think when they decide to include those 9 houses, it makes sense because those 9 houses are existing. They know how much is expended. But for these 2 lots, because the details of this new development is unknown, we have no idea how much expansion of development we are authorizing. I mean, potential development we are authorizing because we do not have the information at this time. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
I move R24.
Second that.
We have a motion by Ms. Stegman, second by Mr. Parker. Ms. Ryan has a comment to make.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Karen, you were too quick for me. I just have a question for Anne about precedent, and I don't know if you feel comfortable giving an opinion on this, but for instance, if we approve this tonight and then we have a developer come in who buys a parcel right outside of the Owasso line that doesn't conform to the ideas that we've heard here from Corey, that that area didn't follow a natural boundary, all those things. Would that development have a reason if they were denied? Would they have reason to go to the Board of Adjustment or to court, and could they prevail? Would doing something like this set a precedent that would allow that kind of development that I don't think we would intend here, or that not development, but that kind of water extension that we don't intend?
Yeah, I mean, answering the question in a relative vacuum, but I'll do my best. So it doesn't set the kind of legal precedent that would bind you to continued approvals of any of things that are somewhat similar to this, right? I really do agree with Corey's characterization of this as being sort of specific to its facts. And I think the resolution is drafted that way. I think the discussion's been tailored in that manner. Every decision that you will make approving a request like this is sort of shrouded in enough discretion to where you could easily make a different decision based on even subtly different facts, if that was what was necessary in that case. If that's helpful.
And those decisions would then be held up by, if they were reviewed by another body or a court.
Yeah, and of course,
likely.
Yes, the next. I guess it would then go to sort of more of a judicial role, but then of course each individual party of the 5-party agreement has their individual determinations to make. But in terms of this body's decisions on each request of this nature is truly individual. And if the next one comes along and it's 3 lots of similar nature, it's different based on their size and their complexity. I mean, here you've got a neighborhood that's subject to covenants. It's, they're single family. They're going to be very difficult to develop it in any other way. That kind of thing. It really is. There's reasonable, I mean, I don't want to get into much commentary here, but it seems to me like there's reasonable certainty about the whole kit and caboodle on this project. The next project may be far less certain, and you can make a very individual determination about that. So, you know, I agree with Corey's, you know, assessment along those lines. But in terms of the legal ramifications of approving the resolution tonight, it doesn't set a hard precedent for anything you would do in the future, because every land decision is going to, almost by its nature, be distinctive.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a long-winded way of saying it, but in some ways, it takes a lot of words to get there. So, yeah, but good question.
I was going to make a comment or sort of ask a question, and you may not have had time. I know there are neighborhood covenants for this particular neighborhood. I don't know what they are. I don't know that you've had time to read them either. But my guess is that they are for single family homes, because that's what this neighborhood was built as. And
when Councilmember Gu was asking her question, I was actually trying to find them online. And if I do, I can certainly pass that along to everyone if you need confirmation. But I have in the past seen that there are covenants that apply to this neighborhood. I just don't have enough information to tell you what they say. And that would in some ways be me testifying anyway, but I do believe they exist, and it's a matter of public record, of course, that they exist, you know, in the registered deed.
Yeah. And the zoning process would be a year-long, I mean, it's an intense process with us. And I don't know that we've ever tackled one quite like that. I can't imagine council going that direction to approve doing something completely different in a neighborhood like this. So that's interesting. But okay. All right. Any more clarifying, or sorry, any more comments that haven't been shared already? All right. Have a motion on the floor and seconded. We'll have a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncey.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Nay.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
And the mayor votes aye as well. That means this will go forward to the other jurisdictions. And Corey, we will count on you to give us an update as that moves through the process. Any determination on how long that would take?
I've heard tentative dates from the other boards, and they were all in November. So with any luck, we'll get through it by the end of the year, but I won't give you betting odds.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. Okay. I now have all the results from our appointments to boards and commissions. Thank you for getting your ballots in, but mostly thank you for people applying. We had lots of applicants. We love when people want to be involved. We still have board openings and board appointments to make, so we encourage folks who may not have been appointed to reapply for some of the other boards, and to know that we will also keep your name in the hopper for that board if other positions come open. So I will try to do my best, but bear with me. I had to write this all out so I could read it back to you. For the Board of Adjustment, we have Brian Godfrey, Jeffrey Green, and Betty Sapp who've been appointed. And I need a motion from council to adopt R, and I don't have the number, to send the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for Thomas Wortman to be appointed.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Parker, second by Mr. Boyncey. Roll call vote, please. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncey.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
And Mayor says aye as well. Thank you very much. That gets moved to the Library Board. We've reappointed Tiffany Allen and June Dunnick and appointed Ruth Morgan for a beginning term. So thank you for that. For the Environmental Sustainability Board, we have reappointed Adrian Tucker, and then we have appointed, and I'm Julie, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna get your name, Gross Najir, is that how we say that? I'm sorry. And then we've appointed Marissa Molina for the regional representative, Lucy Vanderkamp for the Greenways spot, and Grace Elliott for the UNC Chapel Hill spot. For the Human Services Advisory Board, we've reappointed Mary Andrews and Carolyn Fennell, and we have appointed Katrina Welch to that board. For Parks and Rec, we have appointed Leah Boucher, and Tyler Steelman. And we need a motion from council to recommend reappointing Alice Armstrong to the county position on that board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Parker. Roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyncey.
Aye.
Councilmember Gu.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Stegman.
Aye.
And Mayor says aye as well, so that will go forward. Again, thank you. We have a whole set of another board appointments for next council meeting, so look for that in your packet again, council members. And again, we have openings to encourage people to apply. We appreciate everyone's willingness to serve, and that is all we have on our agenda tonight. You guys did very, very well getting through many items on our agenda. Right, so look for your packets to come out for November 4th. I know there's a big event or two in front of that, so wish you all well during the election season. And I'm sorry we have to have a meeting on the 4th. That's just how it panned out, because the following Wednesday is Veterans Day and we don't meet on Veterans Day. So we do not have a work session in November. So there's just two council meetings, the 4th and the 18th, and the community, the CCES meeting on Friday the 6th. So we have that. Mr. Jones, did you have anything else to share before we?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Motion.
Good night.
Meeting is adjourned. Sorry, I don't need a motion.
Bye.